Randy, what the fuck? Randy, I said not the wood ones. Jesus fucking Christ.
Not that one. The other one with the guy with the black hat.
The other one. Jesus.
Not that one.
Yeah, do you hate the wood? You're like, just fucking stop. Just leave it.
Just leave it there. Fuck it.
Yeah, fuck
don't
it.
Put, no, don't hang it back up. Yeah. Don't fucking hang it back up.
Exactly. Yeah, Randy, I fucking knew you were. Welcome to the Dylan and Joe Basement Podcast. We're your hosts, Dylan.
And art aficionado, Joseph.
Joe.
Bonjour.
And here's Joe, do you have any idea what happened in the early morning of March 18th, 1990?
I don't remember. I was fucking wasted from the day earlier because it was St. Patty's Day weekend, kid. How the fuck should I remember what happened that morning? Right before the parade, I was late. My mother was waking me up, shaking me out of bed, thinking I'd be late for the... I give a fuck about the parade. I'm going down to the bar later.
In other words, 13 paintings were stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. This guy was too drunk to even know what happened as an alcoholic art aficionado or whatever you are. But yeah.
I'm a triple A. Oh no, it's aficionado with an E. No, it's an A, right? I'm triple A.
I think it's an A.
I'm in not Alcoholics Anonymous, the Alcoholic Art Aficionado Advisory Association. Called Clean Double A. But yeah, so that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the biggest art heist in not just American history. That's pretty, great, but in world history by far. Not even close. It's insane. Just fucking crazy.
And the craziest thing is, little backstory on this. I remember this like crystal day. I wasn't alive then. I was almost born, but not quite.
You were just about to be. Not soon after.
10 months later, and 9 months, something like that. But I
maybe you're conceived on the night of the heist.
Maybe actually,
does that math work out? March to December?
I don't know. I can't do math.
Yeah, it's around then.
All right, maybe. Yeah, that'd be cool. So it's inspiring.
Very, very
inspiring for some late night get-togethers with your wife or whatever it is. Art heists turn people on. So hopefully, but I don't know. But anyways,
turn me on.
Yeah, so I knew about this, but Joe, you just found out about this, right?
I had not heard hide nor hair of this. I'm not big in the art world myself, even though I do appreciate checking out a museum every now and then. But it was only when we were riding bikes a couple weeks ago that you mentioned it to me. And you were flabbergasted by me not hearing it. And I was flabbergasted about not knowing it. It seems like a super interesting topic. We had brought up the heist of D.B. Cooper, another great heist in American history, in our past episodes. And I figured, and so did you, that this would be a great idea to talk about this week, the art heist of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah, and it's 1990.
1990, close to home. You guys can go there anytime if you're in Boston. And one of the coolest things is you can see behind me that they left the frames. So
you can see exactly where they used to be and where they hopefully one day will return.
That's it. That's why they kept them there, because they're just hoping that they'll show up one day. And there's really, we'll get to it later, but just some cool theories about where stolen art goes. But Joe, before we get into anything, have you been a long time aficionado of art? Like, what does art mean to you?
Well, you understand, my friend, art is life. These paintings, they need people to appreciate them, to understand you're in between you and the artist, and the art is a living, breathing thing. It's not about collecting them. It's about showing them to the world, and only in the act of being observed can art truly live on through the ages. So you asking me if I give a shit about art? My short answer is that. My long answer is that, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know much about art at all. I don't. I mean, only through learning about this and knowing some of the, the hit names, people throw out things like Da Vinci, Picasso, things like that, Warhol, cursory knowledge about it. I learned a little bit more about it during the research in this, but I don't know much.
What is like what do you think about if you were to walk in a museum and one of the displays was a banana that was duct taped to a wall for like $100,000, $200,000? Like what does that make you feel?
Well, that came up in our discussion this weekend about this particular art heist. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of those things where if this it's a victimless crime, even though it's not a crime in this case. If you want to sell a banana for $150,000 to some rich douchebag who wants to buy it, and then the guy goes by, rips it off the wall, and eats it in front of everybody, I like that. I like that. No harm, no foul. You feel like you got robbed of a couple $100,000? Yeah, but if you want to spend it on a banana in the wall, who's the real dumbass here? I don't see why. I don't really see the artistic integrity of doing a thing like that. But another example is by the famous artist of our time, Banksy. He started out being a graffiti, a street artist, and he sold a painting in an auction, an actual like Banksy made painting. And as soon as they purchased it, the the painting ran through the frame, and the bottom of the frame was a paper shredder, and it began to shred the whole thing. Which he designed all as part of the piece of the artwork. So really, our people were horrified, obviously, to see that happen. But if anything, it just makes it more valuable because now it's not only a Banksy painting, an original, which he doesn't sell his paintings like that. So that's, very unique. Also, it's part of this crazy display where he destroyed his own art as an act of selling it. So that's the kind of art that I'm into. If you tape a banana to a wall, go fuck off. Or they have the glass box full of nothing, fuck you. But if you paint a beautiful piece of art and then you shred it on purpose to show how fickle the thing is, I like that shit and I'm into it.
I like that shit, and the reason I'm asking you this is that like I've been passionate about art, but I'm very just being a creative person. But also sometimes you go in there and you read the banana story or a recent one where a guy literally didn't even do anything. He just rented a space and said this is $100,000. And you go, you just get pissed off and you're like, or that's extreme, but some of it is someone just getting angry and throwing a bucket of paint at the wall and they're like, all right, I'm done. And you go, that's stupid, like what's the point? But the thing is that art is designed to create emotion. So who's to say what emotion is more valuable than another?
I agree.
Besides the fact that, these arts, like the Rembrandts that we'll talk about, and more are, they have their value from a different thing. You can calculate a price of art in modern day by time spent on it, as well as you go back to these historic pieces. Who did it, when they did it, why they did it, how many.
It's just as important what it looks like as to what it symbolizes and what it stands for. I mean, it's actually more valuable because of who did it and when, rather than the beauty that is inherent in the art piece, which obviously a lot of these Rembrandts, for example, are objectively beautiful. Even if you're not a huge art fan, they just look amazing. But on top of that it's his, and there's some unique pieces that have never been done by him, and now they've gone missing. That's a lot of value stored in there. The whole world.
Exactly. And the value has, art, has absolutely gone up just because of, appreciation as well as what happened to that art. There's so many stories of art throughout history that has traveled, been stolen, found, been this king's hand, that king's hand, this person died retrieving it. That stuff all comes into play when it comes to art. And it's pretty cool.
And anyways, episode 28, the biggest art heist in world history. Hit it. Sorry, I had to get the title card.
Back to March 18th, 1990. It's about the first time that anybody saw anything sort of weird again came from, we have infrared cameras outside of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, but not inside. And it was around 12:30 a.m.
Yeah, I think it's important, as you said, it's the 90s. It doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but the technology, especially security, has increased exponentially since then. I mean, these were pieces of art that were worth multiple millions of dollars, and this museum was littered with them and still is. And to find out the amount of security they had in there at the time of this heist, it was really baffling to me to see like that's what they had. Just that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same kind of security. A modern day Walgreens has a better security system than this particular museum had on the night of. It was the night of the 17th into March 18th. Late that night.
Right. Yeah. So security wasn't great, and I guess we can start there. So we got two guards.
Well, let's talk about what the museum is. Is it
yeah.
It's just any old art museum. We're talking about things like the Met in New York or the Louvre in France. This is one of those museums that have some of these priceless pieces from some of the masterpieces and some of the best artists in the history of the world that have been collected by this woman who had a penchant for art herself, and she had built the entire museum to look like a villa. So the whole inside is a courtyard that is protected by a glass ceiling. So it's not usual white walls. Look at this, look at that. I mean, the entire place is designed to be this beautiful place, which is part of the reason why it hasn't changed one bit since, because she wrote in her will, it's not to be changed at all. Actually, the museum itself is part of the artwork because she built it and designed it to be beautiful in itself and then fill it with all these priceless pieces of art, which I thought was interesting, as opposed to just your usual, nothing against the Met, but it's pretty much just regular museum. This is not one of those.
Yeah, but she was influenced by that. Elizabeth Stewart Gardner grew up in Manhattan.
I think it's Isabel, right, though?
It's Isabella.
Isabella, thank you. Yeah. Isabella.
I'm
too many names. I'm going to call it the Gardner Museum from now on, but we should at least get her name right, the first one. Thank you.
Well, I promise that I'll turn my phone off. And second, I promise. Oh, it's Verizon telling me that I get money for having a phone.
Hell yeah, that never happened.
So Isabella Stewart Gardner, I promise this podcast and all of our listeners that I'm going to say Elizabeth very soon, because I've been calling it I know it's Isabella, but I say Elizabeth all the time. So I'm going to do it, and just please write in the comments that I'm a fucking idiot, and I'd love that. So
can do.
So anyways, who is she? She's just seems to be like a philanthropist who collected art. She was born in 1840 and died in 1924. And she had a lot of friends who were artists, and she loves traveling.
Yeah. I mean, she was a pretty eccentric woman, they said, but eccentric woman in the 1800s can be a woman who wears different colored socks or slightly buttons down her shirt a little bit. So that's not really a huge part of it. She's just an interesting gal altogether.
Yeah, interesting gal. I mean, exactly like you said, it could be different socks, but in other words, stylish tastes and unconventional behavior. So
sure,
she had a lot
quite
of
a bit of coin on top of it.
Yep, exactly. Wow, yeah, she had some interesting thing. Like she went to the BSO, the Boston Symphony Orchestra, with a headband that said "Oh, you Red Sox." And apparently, that was wild for the day. So, and at the time, it literally almost caused a panic. Just saying,
just for that, huh?
Red Sox, just for that. So,
I guess you'd have to show up with and just unfurl your shirt and have it painted on your chest now for it to be that much of a big deal. Not just a headband won't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Half people going to the orchestra right now probably look way more strange than she did at that time, but it's a different time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's her. And then, like you said, she had the museum, and
the museum has a lot of different pieces of art. I'm sure we'll talk about a couple of them, but each room is designed to be a piece in itself. So the room behind us right now is the Dutch room. It's a lot of paintings from the Dutch masters at the time, a lot of them in the 1600s. And there'll be different rooms. There's like an Italian room. There's a blue room. There's a salon. But each room is, specifically tailored by her to look a certain way. So it's showing off not just the art pieces, but a lot of similarities between them. There's furniture there, statues. It's not all just paintings.
Yeah, everything works together in one. And you'll get that very clearly if you walk in there, because you see the big what do you even call that? It's not a foyer, like where if you look top down.
I'd say the courtyard, the whole middle part.
Yeah, middle part's the courtyard, and then all the rooms are along the side.
Yeah, so you're looking over at the balconies. It's really interesting that they slice out the whole middle to be a courtyard, because that's all space you could be putting paintings, but it just makes the whole place look so much more interesting and beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't been there in 24 years, but 24 years ago, I got yelled at by security guards there.
Oh, I can't believe that. What were you up to no good?
I jumped. There's in the courtyard along the sides there as you go up. There was a lot of giant pots that have plants in them, and I jumped in one.
I
Trouble. So,
mean, the plant's probably worth not that much, but the pot might be from 1850, and they're like, hey,
actually, that's actually a good point. It probably
you can't afford that shit.
Yeah, don't break that pot, buddy.
Yeah. Late in the evening, St. Patty's Day weekend, which is huge in Boston, which might actually be a part of why they chose that time, because not only is a lot of attention in Boston going to be focused on all the revelry of St. Patty's Day weekend, but the St. Patrick's Day parade in South Boston draws in more police officers than almost any occasion in Boston. Not only do you need a bunch more security, and it's a huge event, but a lot of the cops in Boston are from there, and they're Irish, so they're going anyways, even if they're not working.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to do something that's going to cause some sort of disturbance, possibly noise, possibly screaming, if you do it on a quiet, winter night where no one's paying attention,
you're right.
That's the worst time. But if everybody's drunk and walking around, no one's going to give a shit.
It's a great time for it.
If you see,
and in other words, it's a great time to shoot somebody during the 4th of July when people can't hear it.
Yeah, actually, it's a good way of saying it. So,
not condoning that behavior, by the way. I'm just saying it's a good example.
Yeah. So that's what happened. So we have
So it's about 12:30, 12:26.
I got red. At first, I thought it was blue because I think I saw the newspaper article, but I think it was a red hatchback.
I believe it was a blue-gray hatchback. I think it was a Dodge. Yeah,
that's exactly what I thought. And then I
think you were right initially.
I went to another source and they said it was red, and I was like, I always thought it was blue.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's blue-gray hatchback,
that's
which is
exactly what I thought. Blue-gray Dodge.
What the witnesses said they saw at the scene.
We'll tell you, if 2 cops get out of one of those things dressed in uniform, you might have a problem. It's like a shitty shitbag 80s blue Dodge hatchback. Like, it's
exactly. Yeah, it's one thing to be an unmarked car, but no police officers are rolling around in a Hyundai Accent trying to fucking nab a perp. If they are, they're not going to be in full Boston police uniform, which are what our 2 particular suspects are dressed as. We have 2 guys sitting outside of this museum, fully head to toe in Boston police officer uniforms. Before, the only example we have of the car that night was just 2 individuals that were walking past the museum, having their drunken good time, and they see these 2 police officers sitting in this shitty hatchback, and they noted that. Yeah, that's weird. Didn't think anything of it until the next morning, obviously, when they found out why it was even more weird than they thought.
Yeah, that's so funny. It's just so odd. So it gets weirder. So.
Oh, it keeps getting weirder.
It keeps getting weirder. So, so just a quick another detail on security. Security systems like the cameras were only outside, not inside.
Right.
So outside, they had infrared cameras, and there's plenty of them outside, but they didn't want to put them inside because part of like Isabella Stewart Gardner's request is to keep the don't make any renovations. That's what she wanted. So to be secure on the inside, you have to drill in the walls, run wires.
Yeah, I think the only cameras on the inside are like at the security desk and exit and entry points. None of them are actually pointing at the paintings or any of the rooms. And like you said, they didn't want to do any renovations that way.
Yeah, exactly. So
which makes it tough, but they do have motion sensors for each of the rooms. So they have an active log for a 1990s computer of every time someone enters or exits a room, which is going to help them decide if anything is happening untoward. It'll be like, okay, well, someone entered this room at this time. There should only be 2 security guards on the night shift ever. So if we have multiple entries happening at the same time, we got a problem. And it's all printed out to show the age. They print it all out in a piece of paper. It's still in a hard drive, but people don't know what hard drives are yet. But they have a printed piece of paper, like with old ATM receipt when you're typing in the calculator and it's just scrolling out like that. They have at 12:25, someone walked in this room. They just have it all logged out. That's their security system basically. It's just a log of when people are entering and leaving rooms and if they should or shouldn't be, which is helpful. It's better than nothing, but it's not as good as having a camera in the room.
Exactly. So it's very interesting. So on top of that, so I wasn't aware of the motion detectors, but I do remember one of the details that did include. So I just didn't write down. But another thing is they had one button in the whole place at the security desk to call police.
Yes, just at that one desk.
That's it.
That's it.
So and 2 guards that did one sat at the desk while one walked through the place with a flashlight. then he did his rounds, came back in.
You tag
It's
out.
literally like a video game when you're playing, like you have to get past the guards. Their
Yeah, you can
routine is
track their
crystal
movements.
clear. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly what they do. There's not a whole lot of deviation from that. So
Yeah.
you've got, so that's at the moment. You get that, and you've got Rick
None
Abbott,
of those laser sensors that if they're tripped up, the
like
police
Wallace and
show up.
Gromit, or
We
in
don't have, yeah,
Mission
the
Impossible.
swiveling camera. None of that. None of that. It's just
No,
two guys walking around, and there's one button to call the cops at one desk. And if you don't hit that button, you're not going to pull out your cell phone because there is no cell phones. So that's your only way to call out of the facility if anything ever goes
what's
badly
that
for
other
you.
movie with Sean Connery and that really attractive woman who didn't show up in movies in a long time?
Oh, it's so
And
vague.
she's
I don't think I've
moving.
seen it. Oh, I do. It's Catherine Zeta-Jones, and I don't remember
Yep,
the movie. But
yep,
that scene when she's figuring out how to do the
yes,
lasers, I
yeah,
remember
with the
that. I don't know
powder and
why. That one really
she's
sticks
wearing.
out to me.
Yep. So it's a combination of Jane Silent Bob Strikes Back mixed with Wallace and Gromit mixed with
Yeah, you
Mission
picture
Impossible mixed
Tenacious D
with
to Pick a Destiny.
Sean Connery stuff. Like they're all doing the same thing with the lasers, just like going through them.
Hmm.
Um,
That's not
and then
happening here.
no, it's not. But you'd think it would be.
You think it
Um,
would, because not only is there all this art in there, it's supremely valuable. I mean, you would want, even if you was a regular collection of modern art, you'd want it protected better than this. And you have
the Home
pieces
Depot. You want
from, yeah, exactly. You have
protected.
pieces from the 1600s that are literally priceless that are being protected by the two guards and a button, basically, besides these motion sensors. But they aren't going to do anything to call the police if anything goes wrong. They're only there to see what happened after the fact. They're not going to raise any alarms. The only alarm that went off that night was around a little before midnight, and it was a false fire alarm that went off. So
Yeah, we got to talk.
we don't know if that's anything to do with the heist. It's just the only alarm that was actually triggered that night.
It's very interesting, and it might be coincidental. But we'll
That went to the outside world, rather.
So beside that's our security system, and then we've got 23-year-old Rick Abbott, and then,
I feel for this guy, dude. I really do feel for him.
well, because he's the morning after the heist, he drove to New York to go watch Fish or
He went to Connecticut to go see the Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead, yes.
He did a bunch of acid and shit. Yeah.
And then he drove back and said, "I probably shouldn't have left. It looked really bad."
No, we probably shouldn't have left.
Yeah.
And also, it's like they said, he just like he was in a band. He was like a stoner guy who just liked art, and he just would do this gig. And of course, looking back, you're like, why would you ever put this guy in charge of this? I mean, a guy who's showing up stoned to work at midnight with a tie-dye shirt on. You don't want him protecting Rembrandt. But that's all hindsight being 2020.
Yeah, and he's the more experienced one too, which is the funny part.
Yeah.
Funniest part
he's the guy who worked there longer, right? Yeah.
Yes, he worked there longer. So that's Rick Abbott. We'll get in him later. And then we have first night timer, Randy.
Never worked the night before.
Oh my God, I can't remember my writing. Hestard.
I don't remember his last name, but I do know that he showed up to work with the trombone because he was trumpet. He was so sure nothing was going to happen. He was going to start practicing music during that because for years and years, nothing ever happened ever. Not even a mouse trying to break in at night. It's just the most boring gig, and you just got to zone into the boredom when you're there. And hopefully you appreciate art, something to look at, because besides that, no one's playing Candy Crush on their phone. They're just staring at the wall, watching the paint dry, quite literally.
Literally. So it's Randy Hestand.
Hestand, thank you.
H-E-S-T-A-N-D. Yeah, I thought so. I just looked. It's such a weird last name.
That is a strange one.
Yep. So
there are saviors. There are art protectors there. These two kids, basically.
Yep, these two kids. So like we said, 12:30, they're first spotted, parked outside of the museum by the side door, and then at 1:24 a.m. they buzzed in and said, "Hey, we're here to check on a disturbance. It's the Boston Police."
Yeah, they're showing up impersonating the Boston Police, which gives some credit to the people who are working security. You have two fully dressed Boston police officers show up and they tell you to open the door. Your first thought isn't, well, I want to see some fucking ID. I mean, you're some stoned out kids in the desk. You're like, oh, the police are here. I want to follow whatever they want to say. I don't want to get in trouble. But the policy at the museum for security, and it's true in a lot of museums, no one comes in or out. Doesn't matter who it is. Police need to get in. They need to get a warrant, or they need to have some kind of credentials to get in. You're not supposed to buzz anyone in under any circumstance. This poor kid got caught up in that. He said, "Oh, I'll come right in, sir," and buzzed them in. Yeah,
buzzed them in. And the thing is, so back to what you said about the fire alarms. So Abbott was before all this happened, investigated multiple fire alarms that said there were smoke in rooms and there weren't. There's not really a lot of details besides that, but he did have to go around investigating this, which I think is very weird.
You're not allowed to
Also,
smoke in the museum, which is rare in 1990. You could smoke almost anywhere, but this is one of the places where you're not allowed to, just because of the paintings.
yeah, and even then that wouldn't trigger that type of alarm. So like
No.
I have no record of the our fake cop friends here being able to change the system like that and to be able to tell you room by room.
I don't think there's any evidence of
I
anyone
think it's
tampering with the
coincidental
system.
in a strange way. Like
I think it
so
might be.
odd.
Yeah, I mean, from what I found, it just seems like it could have gone off any night, and it happened to go off a night where there was a major art heist. But I don't think they were related because security experts came in later and they said there wasn't any rebooting of the system. It wasn't an electrical failure. It should have gone all well. Probably just the smoke alarm going off faulty. But one thing I did want to add before we get into where the cops show up is that on the record I talked about of the motion sensors, our boy Rick Abbas, he did open up the door the cops came through 10 minutes before they ever got there. So we don't know if he's going to explain that away or not, but it's a very interesting thing. He said he does it all the time just to check the doors locked. That's kind of curious, especially in the 90s, that how do you let someone know I'm at the desk? You can't text them. It might be good to open the door and say, yoo-hoo, time to whatever. So I don't want to crucify him just yet, though. I just thought that'd be interesting to know that he did open the door.
Really, really important
before the cops ever showed up.
Exactly.
Before the fake police officers. I should be clear. They're not real cops. They're just dressed as cops.
So what Joe's saying is that it's possible that he did that as like a sign, like, hey, time to roll.
It could be. It's something to note.
Something to note. It's very interesting. So and then another thing, because of the fire alarms, maybe they think Abbott, like, subconsciously was like, oh, they noticed the alarms and they're coming to check it out. Something, like,
could be. Yeah.
There's just so many influences, especially if you're just some, dude who's just.
Yeah. If you really are just spacing out, I mean, this is just.
You go, oh, wow, they're here to check on that too. All right. Yeah.
They said they were there to investigate a disturbance reported. And that just seems like good cop jargon for, all right, come on in. What am I going to do?
Or maybe neighbors saw like some drunk St. Patrick's Day kid hop in the fence. He also said that too.
Very good. Yeah, very well could have been.
They're going to come give it a look. So he let him in, so this is besides everything, this is where shit gets weird. So Abbott reported that the taller cop had a fake mustache on. He noticed.
Yeah, he seemed like he might have had a fake mustache on.
Yep, he noticed that.
I like that take. And he also had gold wire rimmed glasses, so it kind of seemed like he just tried to wear one of those Groucho Marx "you don't know me" things with the glasses and the mustache.
Yep.
Like that's just shitty disguise 101. You with a mustache and fake glasses and fake mustache. You're like, oh jeez.
Yeah, right? Like it's just so weird.
I mean, the full Boston police officer uniform official is a great disguise. Mm-hmm. Sticking on the dime store mustache on top seems like throwing good money after bad at that point. Those can't have been easy to come across. Up-to-date uniforms. Obviously, it's illegal for police officers to give those to people because they can do something just like this.
Yep, and there's a lot of reasons why they got them that we think are just at all the clues at the end tied at this. Some of those
they somehow came into possession of these uniforms and they used them to the fullest extent of their ability.
Exactly.
Because when they walked in the door, the first thing they say to the kid is that, like you said, there's a disturbance, and then they start to say, "Are you alone?"
Yeah. They asked anyone else in the museum, and if they are, bring them down. So Abbott radioed Heston.
Poor son of a bitch doesn't know what's coming to him. He's just thinking, oh, something's going on. Oh, finally, something is happening. I can stop being bored for 3 hours. Little did he know.
Yep. So, tell Heston to come to the desk and basically.
Then the shit goes down.
That looked familiar, and they might have a warrant for his arrest.
That's what they say, though.
Provide ID, so they all complied.
They start cuffing him.
And then they got forced against the wall, and they got handcuffed, and basically the fake cops were like, hey, we have your addresses now, so we can't tell anybody. Mm-hmm. And
these guys are still confused at this point because they think they're being arrested. They don't know why until the cops pull out their guns and they go, guess what? It's a robbery. We aren't cops.
Yeah.
And you aren't talking. So if you don't want anything to happen to you, we're going to shoot you in the fucking head.
Gentlemen, they said, and the quote is quote unquote, gentlemen, this is a robbery. And that was like
imagine in that moment
the Boston
being like,
Globe's title was "Gentlemen, this is a robbery." Yeah.
I mean, you went from going like, I'm getting arrested, I'm gonna have to beat this charge, I don't even know what they're booking me for, to no, it's the robbery, you might die tonight, you better fucking comply. So they bring them into the basement, which is the tunnels they have under the facility itself, and they chain them to the part of the basement, including duct taping their eyes and mouth, and including Abbott. So weird. He looks like Chewbacca. They have his full long hippie hair and beard. They have him duct taped to his eyes and over his head. It looks like some weird little kid tried to make a mask for him. And that seemed strange at the time. And so they had them both chained up in the basement. And then it was time to get to the heisting at that point.
Yeah. So that interaction was 11 minutes, and now it's 1:35. So guards are chained to a pipe or something, duct taped on their eyes and their mouth downstairs. And now it's time to start stealing stuff.
Yep.
So,
and you got to be thinking right now, if you're a usual robber, the clock is ticking. Any robbery or heist or anything like that, like every single minute that goes by must feel like, an eternity, because you're always thinking that at any moment now we could be caught. And not only are we going to have these paintings in our hands, we're going to have two guys kidnapped in the basement. There's two other charges there. We got armed robbery, we got kidnapping, we got grand theft. I mean, the more time you're spending in there, you got to figure you want to get in and out as fast as possible. But as we'll see, this is a long heist.
It's a long heist. So on top of that, you've got the security guards who are just, typically if you're out of sight, you're probably going to die. No one's going to shoot you in the middle of the street, but it'll take you somewhere dark like this and just go.
Yeah, and you can possibly ID these guys now because you've seen them, you've heard them talk to you, and if they let you go, the worst thing that can happen to them is that you're just going to give a full description and know everything you know about them and rat on the whole thing, and that'll be bad for them. So why even
bad for them? So you're likely to
leave you alive.
They're likely to kill you, and
especially when you're dealing with millions of dollars. I mean, they're not stealing a TV from you, and this is big money.
Yeah, and so this is in 1990, $200 million. It's worth 500 today's day, but $200 million of art these guys are going to go take.
Yeah, so the equivalent of $500 million in today's money of what this heist is going to be.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've heard in my life. It's just a bunch of
it's not even close. Every other art heist has been so much more minor compared to this. It's just like.
So I don't know if this is true, but I did read that the Dresden Green Vault burglary in 2019 was bigger.
I have not heard this.
I don't know. I don't know if this is true, but apparently it was the biggest art heist of all time until this.
Okay, so this one's even bigger then. Well, yeah, we'll have to look into that.
We'll have to look into that later.
Into the story at all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess we'll just it'd be maybe the second biggest art heist in history. What are you fucking taking this already? What the fuck you talking? You don't even know if it's true or not. I'll just leave that there, and then let's be more boring the whole time. I think we'll figure it out before you call it out. You fucking douche.
I think it's true. I think it's true.
I know. I believe
it said it was true, but it also said the car was red. So maybe I'm getting my information weird.
No, the car was not red. But we'll see.
The car wasn't red. I remember that from being a kid. It wasn't red.
You knew that, yeah.
I did. I've known it right. For 20 years. So, yeah.
So let's get into the heist itself.
Yeah.
What are they? They just grab the paintings off the wall and throw them into a flatbed truck. They came in a hatchback. It's gonna be a tough way to get away.
So how'd they do it, Joe? How'd they get?
So what they did we think they must have known the paintings they were looking for initially, because they went right to the Dutch room and they started cutting out these Rembrandt paintings. That were there
after they put the guards down. By the way, they waited 13 minutes before they started.
Right, because we know from the motion sensors what time they entered the room, so that means there was some time in between then. I mean, there's 13 pieces all together. The bigger ones being Rembrandt's "A Lady and Gentleman in Black." They also had a sketch self-portrait by him. We have a Vermeer painting, The Concert, a Flink painting, Landscape of the Obelisk. We have a Manet painting that was in a different room. It was much smaller. And then, other things, and the most weird of which I think that happened to be a bronze beaker from 1200 BC China. That doesn't fit the whole Rembrandt thing you're doing here, and it's definitely as equally as priceless. I mean, this is an ancient artifact, basically, that's in a museum.
It must have just been an easy grab, because I saw that too, and I thought that was
can see that being an easy grab.
They had paper art basically, and one of the pieces of art. So they took that the self-portrait of Rembrandt,
which is like they're very tiny.
Yeah, they took a small one because they went to grab the big one, but it was actually painted on wood, and they realized that it's just they wanted to roll stuff, so they ditched that and then just grabbed something else. So it seems like they might have panicked possibly twice and just grabbed two things.
Right, but here's the thing with the small sketch, it was meticulously unscrewed and separated from the frame. So if you're trying to do something fast, that seems like the slowest way to do it. And obviously that's hard to keep in good shape because literally a piece of paper that's the size of a postage stamp. It feels like if you shove that in your pocket, you're going to ruin it immediately, which they might have just done that. But then why take it out so meticulously? If you just smash the frame, grab the piece of paper, throw it in your pocket, you're good to go. It's odd. There's so many weird twists and turns in the story that it's just as soon as you think you pinned it down what they're doing, I have another thing that comes up and I go, well, yeah, but why'd they do that though?
Yeah, well, exactly. So, yeah, so my guess is time didn't seem to be a concern, and also because the guards weren't found for way later. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we'll get there. But so maybe time wasn't a problem. Like I said, space is definitely an issue, and also if they're leaving the museum as cops with paintings that are huge and square, it's clear they're stealing them. But if they just have a duffel bag,
yeah. But let's also not forget, I didn't realize this in the first part. Some of the paintings were small enough, like you said, that they could have been, when they were cut out, you figure, oh, we'll roll them up and throw them in a tube and that's all over. But a lot of them, because of the nature of art at the time, they're on a canvas. So you can't just roll it up like a blueprint and put it in a tube. A lot of these things would have to be at least carried out in their full form. I mean, outside of the frame, which, gets rid of about 20, 30 pounds, but you still have to carry this. I mean, one of the Rembrandt paintings, the Storm of the Sea of Galilee, was 5x4. So that's like holding a person and coming out. And if you wanted to separate it from the canvas itself, first of all, you're destroying it, but also it'd be difficult to do that without ripping the whole fucking thing in half. So
that's a good point.
It's just, I feel like there wasn't a lot of, just witnesses to this going on. I have a feeling that these guys were walking out with these full paintings for a lot of it, and they knew how to get out of it. It's hard to say.
2 or 3 trips to the car. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which seems insane, but there's no, the only witnesses we have to the outside are the 2 people who saw them in that car. We don't have anyone seeing any cops carrying anything, any cops walking around, no witnesses there. And like you said, the cameras aren't as reliable as we think we want them to be everywhere. They just weren't. All it was the sensors. So we know when they're moving and when, but we don't actually get to visually see them do this. But I thought that was interesting too. You figure if you're going to cut them out of the frames, you roll them up and stick them in the tube, but then you come to find out not all these paintings can be dealt with that way. So then why cut them out of the frames to begin with? You're taking more time than you need to. If you're going to have to carry them out wholesale, just carry them out wholesale or cut them out and roll them up. But to cut them out and then carry them out is so strange to me.
Well, so I don't think it's that strange because of just how I would do it. I'm thinking of how I do this.
Yeah.
And not that I've stolen art, but
right. But you can't help but think, how would I do this if I was going to try to pull this off?
I have a decent amount of art in my house, and like I do. None of it's worth shit, but it's just every time we've moved, we've had to put it in these boxes and move it. So my thing is with the frames, it becomes heavy and it sucks. And getting those frames off the wall, I'm assuming is not easy.
Lose the frames,
lose the frames, that. Easy enough. So again, like I said, I thought they would roll it, and
for some of them they very well could have, but it would take, from what I understand, it would take longer to separate them from the canvas and get to that point. But maybe that's why they took so long to begin with. So.
Yeah. Exactly. But my also thought I didn't think of until now is that if you roll it might crack, especially being. Oh,
of course. I mean, that was the thought that everyone.
This isn't,
Yeah, everyone who worked in the museum was like, if these guys rolled these things up, the cracking paint is just gonna destroy these paintings. I mean, even if it doesn't ruin them entirely, just to ruin them even a little bit is diminishing the value and just kind of just destroying this piece of art, which is you want to store it in perfectly. Unhumid, dry, completely flat, protected. Like it's just like dealing with it's just this precious little gentle thing, and to just be like throwing them around and crushing them in a fucking tube, it's like you're destroying the whole thing.
Yeah, not a good idea. So maybe they put them in like a piece of cardboard or something. Like they just sandwich them like this.
Yeah,
something like that. So I'm just thinking there's something to it, to keep them. Okay after cutting them out, but
you'd think they would have had to at least thought about it that far ahead, because all the information that they know going into this heist leads me to believe that they had a lot more planning than just You don't just get a couple cop uniforms as a birthday gift and say, hey, why don't we go rob the Gardner Museum? That might be a cool move. No, they had a full knowledge of what pieces they wanted to take because they took specific pieces. And another thing about the heist is that all of the paintings and objects were taken from the second floor around this similar area, except for one that was taken on the first floor, which seems to be another anomaly that they would do that when they have this certain thing they have to do here.
So the thing is, so we should talk about that. So nobody really understands why they took what they took for a couple of reasons. One being what you just said. Two being, we got a lot of, so Rembrandts, Verniers, Flinks, the Chinese thing, Utini self-portrait, and, what I say now, like 8 more paintings from different places. None of them are the most valuable paintings in the museum. The concert is the most valuable of the group, but it doesn't seem to be still the most valuable in the whole museum.
Yeah, I thought that the Rembrandt Storm of the Sea of Galilee is the only painting he ever did of a seascape, so that was inherently more valuable just for that. But I can see how, there's a reason why they took certain paintings and not others. It's hard to say.
But it still wasn't as valuable as like the concert by Vermeer. But there's other ones in the museum that are arguably more valuable. So like they knew what they were going to take, but they didn't take exactly the best bang for the buck. They could have
including unscrewing the top of a flag. It was a flag piece called a finial on top of it. It was from the Napoleonic Wars, and they took the time to unscrew the top of a flag and take that. I mean, if you're trying to save time and snatch and grab stuff, why are you taking it? That's the least valuable thing they took, and they took the time to meticulously unscrew it. They found the screws in the ashtray and outside the room there. It's like, what the hell?
So weird.
Like you said, not the most valuable thing there.
So it's calculated, but they didn't get the most valuable stuff, and they seem to grab some random stuff out in the way.
As far as we know, it's random, yeah.
Well, as far as we know, it's random. I mean, definitely the postage stamp size self-portrait probably was based off of, they took the other one that was wood off of the wall and then bailed after that.
Yeah. But I heard a couple of versions of that, though. There was one, the Rembrandt painting they left. And you're saying you think it's, I mean, you might be right, that it's because it was painted on wood, they couldn't take it as easily. But it's interesting that was the one piece that they left there after they took it off the wall. I mean, I feel like you're in for a penny, in for a pound. Maybe that one was on the list and they didn't know that it was going to be more difficult to take. It seems like speculation. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it wasn't that.
Maybe it went down with this, Randy, what the fuck? Randy, I said not the wood ones. Jesus fucking Christ.
Not that one. The other one with the guy with the black
hat. The other one. Jesus.
Not that one.
The wood. Just fucking stop. Just leave it.
Just leave it there. Fuck it.
Yeah, fuck
don't
it.
Don't hang it back up. Yeah. Don't fucking hang it back up.
Exactly. Yeah, Randy, I fucking knew you weren't sorry, I'm talking about the guards.
Don't say it.
But the two guys, whatever their names are, no one knew their names, but
right. Our suspects here. But the whole thing altogether was 81 minutes. So that's an extremely long heist, which also implies that they knew there's no cops coming. Because if you're gonna steal things for 81 minutes in a full museum, you have to either be stupid enough to not do the heist, or there's no cops coming, so you can take your time with these pieces, because it's almost a full length of a movie. They're robbing this place, and they are pretty comfortable and no one's going to show up. And obviously no one saw them leave, so they had plenty of time to leave as well.
Yeah, and each interaction just had gaps in between. Like I said, at first when they, after they tied him up, they waited 13 minutes, and supposedly they think that they waited to see if cops were going to come. And then
I can see that,
because that's in the timeline of when they would show up after something happened.
Sure.
They're like, all right, so we're clear. If they didn't show up now, they're never going to show up.
But it also seems they might have known that there's only one button to call the police at the security desk, because after that had happened, they had no concern that they would show up. Maybe after that 13 minutes initially, but it seemed after that they were like, there's no way someone's going to, hit another magical button somewhere in the cops show. Like after that, they're like, oh, we're in the clear now. Like, take your time and make sure not to fuck these paintings up, because if you fuck them up when you cut them out, they're worthless. So
yeah, and it's wise, and it's also a telltale sign of like somebody who's probably done something like this before. You're talking to criminals. I mean, these are not just normal people who are like, let's just give this a shot and see how it goes.
These guys, no matter what you say, they knew what they were doing going into it. That's for sure.
Definitely not panicking.
No.
Yeah, they're just using like, all right, we're gonna wait for like you call 911 and cops show up in this area between probably 4 and 13 minutes, and they waited for the tail end of the possibility of when they came.
Yeah.
They didn't come. They said, "All right, we're in the clear. We can just put our feet back and do some paintings."
So yeah, all said and done, like I said, 81 minutes, 13 paintings that would be valued today at around half a. Hold on.
It's done. Wow.
There we go. That would be valued at $500 million. And now let's talk about the morning of, because as of right now, no one in this museum or is associated with the museum knows this has happened. People are getting up on Sunday morning, getting ready for their St. Patty's Day parade. Hopefully, some hair of the dog, getting that hangover cured up, saying their prayers, make it to church early. You got to see this parade. And the security guards show up to open up the building to get in. You have to be buzzed in by other security guards as that kind of passing the torch. And there's no answer. No one's answering the security gate. So they know something is awry at this point. Something has gone wrong.
Yep.
Either Ricky has smoked too much weed and passed out. But where's my trumpeter over there? He's not there either. It's an issue. So they actually have to call the head of security to unlock the building because he's the only one who has the key to unlock it without being buzzed in. And he takes the security guard through a separate door. They walk to the security office and the door has been kicked in. And they start to realize this isn't a fluke. There has been something very badly that's happened last night.
Yep, exactly.
And that's when they notify the Boston Police Department, who shows up, I think, 10 or 15 minutes after that initial discovery in the morning. So their initial thought is obviously, are the guys still here? And they're calling the police. And then their second thought is, where are the security guards?
Yeah.
And it's not until the police show up that they actually find them, because they can't find them anywhere in the museum.
And they probably thought they were probably dead or something like that, but they were downstairs.
When the police came in, they said when they couldn't find the security guards, one of the experienced cops said, if we're going to find a body, it's going to be in the basement. So they went down there thinking that these guys might already be dead in the basement.
Yeah, and these cops are very familiar with the Winter Hill gang, so they're very used to going in basements to find dead.
Whitey Bulger's gang.
Well, yes, exactly. So you're talking at a time where Boston was at its worst of all time in history.
Yeah, we're in the middle of.
We're in the tail end of actually. And that these cops, they know how this goes down. So,
yeah, the Irish and Italian mob had been running the town for years and years. And this has been right at that time where they're starting to actually get these big cases to break. And they're arresting 20, 30 guys a clip, trying to dissipate them completely. But it's still in a time where the headline is usually, so-and-so mobster gets arrested, on a charge, rather than this art heist that's about to be the breaking news at the time.
Yep. Exactly. So they went downstairs, found the guards, same thing.
They were still alive, luckily, but
whatever it is. And the guards, once we get to the interviews, they had nothing but nice things to say about the robbers. They were very kind to them. They would, periodically check on them to make sure that their duct tape isn't too tight and they're comfortable. And then
ask them if they need water. They didn't torture them. They didn't pistol whip them. Obviously, they didn't kill them, which would be the easiest thing to get away with. Not to get away with, but to make sure that they don't say anything about you later. But
yeah, which is crazy because if you're in that position, you're just like, they're just gonna
broke up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. If you're in the position, you're just thinking they're just going to kill you, and
of course,
then their words themselves during multiple rounds of interviews is, they just thought they were just going to leave and burn the place down.
Oh wow, that would have been even more tragic.
Yeah.
All that.
That was what they thought, which is again, that's what they thought. Doesn't mean that's just based off of their fears, not anything else. So,
and from interviews with our people who worked for security, they had been complaining about the lack of security for months. They said that this place, kind of seems suspicious to have security guards. Talk about that, but if you work a job like that, the ins and outs of it, and how safe or unsafe it was. And a lot of security guys were like, we're just baiting people to get robbed here. It's gonna be way too easy if it happens. So you got to think that night when it is happening, they're like, oh fuck, it finally happened. Had to be me.
Exactly. It's just the first nighttime where you must be like, what the fuck? But also, they had I don't know if they're formal audits, but there was some sort of audit by the Museum of Science and other museums around there that were like, hey, you guys gotta probably ramp it up. You guys are acceptable based off of the standard for security.
The bare minimum.
But that what?
like they had the bare minimum security that was acceptable.
Yeah,
to
like
have.
it's okay. You guys have enough, but we think you need more.
And clearly they did. Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly did. So, want to take a quick commercial break?
Sure,
We'll get
yeah.
word from our sponsors real quick, and we'll
Absolutely.
get back to you guys about some leads and people of interest.
What's going on, cool cats? 'Tis the season to enjoy a little bit of the countryside. When I'm enjoying the countryside, I can't think of one thing better to pop into my gullet than New England's best IPA, courtesy of Wormtown Brewery. Don't worry. Why you worried? Be happy.
We've got the FBI involved now, the Boston branch, and they took immediate control of the case.
Yeah, I think they basically said to all the local guys, step aside. This is a big case.
The FBI. This stuff is likely to cross state lines. It's our job to handle this from here now. So
yeah, and they were right. I mean, it's a classic thing of getting in the way of the local police department, but aren't they right? It's a multi-$100 million art case. I don't really think the local Boston chapter is really fit for this.
Yeah, no.
If anyone is.
Yeah, so they're like gonna cross state lines. We've got very little evidence of anything ever at all besides stolen paintings, no hair, no fingerprints.
Yep.
We've got a description from the guards of like one fat guy in his 30s with a fake mustache and another
taller guy,
sort of fat guy in his 30s who's shorter, like
yeah. Oh no, the one guy that wasn't fat though. He was, they average
said
weight.
Yeah, medium. What does medium? What does medium mean?
Well, I don't know. Medium in 1990. That's hard to say.
Some skinny fat dude.
This is a tough time for forensics too. You're right on the edge of all the old forensics becoming obsolete, but not close enough. Like they were looking for DNA. I mean, they weren't looking for DNA. They're looking for fingerprints and they wanted people's names and shit. A decade later, you'd have DNA, you'd have cell phone tracking, you'd have infrared camera, you'd have everything. But you're just on the cusp of it. It's like you might as well be a 1970s detective on a serial murder case.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, you'll have all the evidence you need. And of course, anything saved is not useful enough. In particular, the duct tape. They could have got fingerprints off of that. They had a picture of it on the floor. They crumpled it up and threw it in the corner after they took it off the guy's head because they're like, oh, get this out of here. It's trash. No, it's not. And then that evidence has gone missing. So not only we have DNA off the duct tape, we'd have
just
fingerprints.
Clean up all that blood right now. Just clean it up now.
It's a mess in here, all this broken glass, wipe it out. Yeah, I mean, the Boston police were stomping all over that crime scene before the FBI even showed up, and the FBI was on the thing pretty fast. I'm sure a couple of those police officers were none too happy to leave the St. Patrick's Day parade to have to go deal with this froofy, fancy boy French art and shit. I mean, I saw some interviews with people in Boston talking about this. It's just those classic Boston shit. They're like, I don't know about this fucking foofy art stuff. I don't know. I don't care. It's like, yeah, I know. You don't know. I don't blame you. I'm just saying. It might not be taken as seriously.
As an FBI agent, like, did I fucking say to clean up the mess right there? Or did I not say to clean up the fucking mess? Like, what did I tell you? Get the fuck out of here. Like,
dude, one of the ladies who gets interviewed, as soon as they start talking to her, she drinks out of her cup and she goes, hate water. She hates water. It's classic Boston.
Classic Irish Boston.
She's like, I hate water. I can't stand water. That's classic. There you go.
Classic.
I like that.
And it's it's St. Patrick's Day. There's so many things about this that are just the most.
It's a great story.
It's fucking funny.
I love it.
It's hilarious. God, that's really.
So yeah, on top of the fact the FBI is not looking for evidence, I thought it'd be interesting to say that they started leaning towards, obviously, we got to question the security guards. These guys knew too much about the museum in and out. And if they didn't know it, they got really fucking lucky by knowing there's only one button, knowing that they'd get let through immediately, even though the guy didn't have to open the door. I mean, it's all lining up for these two robbers here, including the fact that there is a secret door in the Dutch room that they walked through, and it was left ajar when the FBI showed up. So that's a door that even the average hood could go in there, encase the joint. If you buy a ticket,
you still wouldn't know about that secret door. A lot of people who visited there as patrons didn't know about it, but these guys utilized it as part of the heist, letting authorities think there might be a little more inside knowledge here than previously expected. Obviously pointing their fingers at the two guys working that night, but it could have been any of the security staff that could have let these guys know about this.
That's true. Wow, I didn't know about that door when I was there.
Yeah. I mean, either. I've never been.
I didn't find it. I was just laughing at myself because I was thinking of the Dave Chappelle skit where he's like, every crime scene has semen on it.
Yeah, exactly.
The FBI agent, dude, you get the fuck, clean that fucking up. It's just, the Stewart Gardner Museum has semen.
It was their signature. After stealing the artwork, they sprayed their DNA, but like, I don't even know what DNA is. Doesn't count yet.
Why, it's 1990. Why there's an art heist with two men? No one's even been in touch. Why is there semen everywhere?
There's semen all over the frames that were left behind.
Exactly. Why?
It's a calling card.
That didn't happen, guys.
No, that's just a joke.
Well,
but one of the frames was left on the seat of the security director, which is another reason why they thought it might have been an inside information, because it kind of seemed like a big fuck you to the security director, because it was that one painting taken from the first floor, and the only time anyone walked into that room from the motion sensor data, which we're going to take as gospel, we don't know if it was faulty or not, it was before the heist ever started, was the last time anyone walked in that room. And the frame ended up on the security desk, and it's never been seen again, which means that either the sensor data didn't work, or someone who was in that building before the heist began removed that painting. So it's hard to say, but it's interesting.
Very interesting. And
also, it's like you said, it doesn't seem to fit the theme of what they were going for here. It's a different room, different artist, mid-sized painting just goes missing.
I wonder if it was like his favorite painting or something, and they knew that.
Could be.
Like, hey, this is his everything, and you go,
yeah, this is the one you like, or take this right here. Here's the frame for you.
It's like why Hitler invaded Stalingrad instead of Moscow or St. Petersburg. It was
because it had his name.
It was a billion miles out of the way, but he said it's his name, and we're gonna go take it. And it was the worst decision he ever made, and quite frankly, possibly why we aren't Germans right now.
Yeah, that's big time.
Because they all died in the fucking winter. But
also, if you consider that art thievery, which I do, the biggest art thieves in the history of the world is the Nazi invasion of Europe.
Oh yeah, they took it all, and there's a lot of it still missing. The Nazi
gold
train. Another podcast could be Nazi gold train, because there's a lot about that fucker.
For sure. I just thought that was an interesting tie-in.
Art and gold.
Yeah.
So Joe said it a few times, but didn't even say it. Suspect number one is Rick Abbott.
Mm-hmm. You got to think, this guy let these guys in. He possibly was in one of the rooms the painting was stolen before the heist even begun. He opened up the door 10 minutes before the heist starts, and now he's just hanging out, letting these guys in immediately. I mean, he was suspect number one. Like, this guy let these guys in, and he told them everything about the museum, and they knew what to do. And now he's duct taped comfortably to a pipe, and they're asking him if he needs any water. I mean, this seems like this guy was in on it. Yeah. Why isn't he dead? Why is he duct taped all weird? If he's not dead, he says that he doesn't know what happened, but they're gonna question him.
Well, and the thing with the whole door is that other security guards would have noticed this is something he does and said, "Hey, bro, that's gotta fucking stop."
Yeah, you should not do that.
They would have noticed it and said, "This is you can't be doing this here. This is against the rules. We're either gonna fire you or give you one warning."
And they did claim
he said he did that is a lie.
Sorry. Yeah, he says he does it all the time, but then the actual motion sensor records for the rest of that week, because they didn't keep long logs like we have now. We have more memory storage. Just for every other day he worked that week, he never opened that door. So maybe he does open it a lot, but he never did that week until that night, which is suspicious.
Yep, exactly. Back to your, first floor blue room painting. The only footsteps.
That's the man-made painting.
In that room that night were of Abbott's, not the thieves.
So.
Yeah, and security consultant confirmed this was all working properly. However, an FBI agent, the only thing in his defense is that they studied they meticulously studied these guys and said basically this guy's too stupid to do this.
Yeah, I mean, the stupidity that led this to happen might have been the saving. He's like, oh, this is some stoner who let them in. Well, then unfortunately they got in, but because they're calling him like a banned stoner guy, they also think he couldn't have planned this, so they give him the pass on that. I mean, they never charge him with anything. So obviously, if they had anything on him, they would have definitely liked to charge him, but they decided not to after asking him all the questions we're talking about right now. Apparently.
Yep, exactly. And
he put it in his 2 weeks notice before this happened. By the way, another
we didn't even mention that.
red mark on that. And he did quit the day after when he said, "I'm lucky to be alive. I could give a shit about the artwork. I thought they were gonna kill me." So I actually can respect.
He pretty much told them like, I don't get paid enough to die for this job. So
I can respect that. Yeah,
respect that. Yeah. Which is another reason why maybe they had something to do with it, because they're all just pissed. They're underpaid security guards and like, no, you do your thing. I don't get paid enough for that shit. I'm not gonna die.
Yeah, and you're fully aware of how easy it would be to pull off a heist like this. Meanwhile, you're sitting getting pennies on the dollar, looking at these priceless pieces of art, saying they should really take care of this place better, and they're not taking care of me. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Let's teach them a lesson and riddle the floor with paintings.
I think it's not spoken about how funny it is that the FBI just studied the two of them enough to then said they're, as nicely as he said, too incompetent to be able to be a part of this, which is exactly like Jeff from American Dad. He goes into this one episode where he like turns smart, and then the only way to outsmart the smart people is to be his normal self, which is too stupid for them to predict. Like, yeah. He's so stupid that they don't know what his next move is. They can't even predict his next move because it just so defies logic that these guys might have just been that dumb that they didn't.
It could be. I mean,
that the things they did are weird, but not at all thought out. Mm-hmm. And there was one more weird thing about Abbott that they disproved, but maybe they don't. Again, same thing. It's he said, she said. Was it the week before or the night? Oh, the night before the theft. Abbott, this fucking guy, man.
I love this guy, dude.
I love this guy too. He's he really is either just Jeff from American Dad, or he's really just a part of the whole damn thing, or he has a gun to his head or something, or I don't know. But like, he buzzed it the night before. He buzzed in an unidentified man into the museum to talk to him at the security desk.
Yeah, they have the tape. They don't have a video footage of the actual entry of the cops, because when they bust in the security room, they knew right where the tape is, and they destroyed the tape, and they destroyed the paper record of the entries and exits. They didn't know what a hard drive was because it's early in computers, so they had the log still. But these guys knew right where to go to destroy the evidence. And one night before, he let another guy in. That tape's still there because no one broke that tape. So that's a bad look. Jeff, stop buzzing people in, dude.
Yeah, right.
It's supposed to be no one, even the police, and he's letting in a non-police officer the night before. So it's just, come on, man.
It's really funny. So
I think they just got so complacent to being like, nothing's ever gonna happen. Nothing ever happens here.
Like, it's so boring here. We don't give a shit.
What do you want? I'll let you in. What's the worst that could happen? Kind of thing. I think that's probably
smoke a joint with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate some art that you can't see anywhere else in the world.
Hey man, you want to? It's like night at the museum. Hey man, you want to come here at night? It's really crazy. Like nothing's like.
The other guy brought his trumpet with him. I don't think he had any plans that he was going to get robbed that night. Leave that shit at home.
No, exactly. These people are funny. I mean, they're playing trumpet.
I feel so bad for them too. If they really had nothing to do with it, like what a shitty night. You're like, you kidding me? I don't need this shit, man.
Yeah, it's really funny.
They're gonna blame me for this. And meanwhile, I'm trying not to get killed.
I'm a fucking idiot. Yeah. And I should have been fired for the things I'm doing. But
they didn't fire them. They didn't fire either of them. They both quit.
I should have been fired for the things that I do on a daily basis, but they're not related to getting robbed. Like I had nothing to do with this. I just don't do my job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you get. You get what you pay for, man. You really do.
Yeah.
So if you want to protect these priceless pieces of art, maybe don't pay minimum wage to a guy who's trying to get his band off the ground in Alston, living with 8 other guys, jamming out. That's what you got. He's going to the Dead show this weekend. He said he was planning on calling out on Sunday either way. Because he was going to do acid in Hartford, Connecticut. Just so happens, gun put to his head, so not going to work out. But he's still going to the show. I like that about him.
I appreciate it.
Imagine dropping acid and that morning you had been to put a gun to your fucking head and they robbed him millions of dollars. You're like, I'm not going to miss the Dead show just because of that. I'm still alive, aren't I?
Well, someone asks you, like, dude, were you there? I'd be like, yeah.
Like, yeah, I got to go back on Monday. I got to go talk to the police for 12 hours.
This probably looks really bad right now, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't think that
I don't think
if
so.
he had something to do with
All
it, I don't
cared about
think
was
he
going to
gained a
bed.
lot from it because he was just all the wrong moves. But who knows? So that being said, let's get into the suspects here because we got to figure who the fuck did this because someone did it. And spoiler alert on the podcast, we still don't know who did it. So we're just gonna have to talk it through because the paintings haven't been found, so we don't exactly know what happened. We can only parse together information as we know it, and as obviously investigators and private journalists have discovered it for themselves. And everyone has their own idea of what happened. But what's the first thing you think about when you think of missing paintings? What I think about is the black market and selling into some Russian oligarch or Saudi prince or some kind of, evil genius who just likes to have these paintings just as like a status move. I mean, that's the first thing I thought of. Like maybe they knew a guy who can move paintings to some kind of, rich billionaire in the middle of nowhere who's just going to hang it up in his house. Because obviously you can't be flaunting these things around. You're basically admitting that you have a hot painting that's worth millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
that was my first thought.
Me and Joe, we talked about that, I think, at the, what town was that? House of Pizza?
Warren. Yeah.
Warren House of Pizza. Shout out to those guys. That place is
that was awesome. Shout out.
Really genuinely excellent. Real Italian people giving you real Italian food.
I'll be back.
I will definitely back to Warren House Pizza. Love that place. Anyways, yeah, so like I was learning about stolen paintings and stolen artifacts, like really actually more stolen artifacts, like taken essentially.
Well, this is how it came up. You pointed at a part of the wall that had a missing piece of art. It was lit, and you brought up this heist, and I said I have no idea what you're talking about, and you're like, are you fucking kidding me? And this is how we got in the conversation about this because as we see, the frames are still up in the museum, so it's kind of that haunting, missing kind of deal.
Yeah. We were at this cool House of Pizza Italian restaurant. It was great, and they had a lot of art.
They did.
They seriously did, like, cool stuff. And I said, like, oh, there's a story about, like, same thing, like a Saudi prince who's someone you don't even know. A lot of times you don't even know those guys. Like, they're not like the Meghan Markle crowd. Like, these are like
no,
crazy rich people who just drive their Ferraris all over.
That's the thing. If you're rich in your town, people know about you. Yeah. If you're rich in your country, people know about you. If you're the richest people in the world, no one know who you fucking are unless they want you to. People like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they want people to know how much money they have. Otherwise, you wouldn't know about them. I wouldn't know about the Koch brothers unless they made 10 documentaries about them over 30 years. And there's still no one knows who they are. Exactly. I don't know all those princes in the Middle East that are getting all this oil money. If you don't want to be known, you won't be. You have enough money to do it otherwise.
And you get that a lot of these Saudi prince type of stuff in, anywhere in Asia that these there's some seriously rich people who fly under the radar, but they have people,
real money,
friends, and they go, hey, like they on their wall, you go, where's that from? And they go, oh, that's a piece that was made in it was under the Sphinx, and I got it off of whatever it is. Like
exactly, it's like just to say that's why they do it, just so they can brag at that moment.
They can tell you like, hey, this
is the actual painting from the year 1300 that this one guy did. You know, the one that no one else has. This is it.
Yeah, this is it. Or this is, Vermeer's The Concert from 1663.
Yeah, and here it is. And they're not an art expert. They can't actually verify it, but just for them, they know it's the real one. So they're fuck
and no one can verify it. And then there could be stories that saying, hey, this guy in Saudi Arabia has one of the paintings. And they go, great. People probably say it all the time, but he knows that he actually does have the
right. But he knows it is the one.
Everyone goes, he said he had the one, but how can you possibly verify that?
I mean, there's probably hundreds of fake. We know there's hundreds of fakes out there of all these famous paintings, but there is the one original, and our experts using specific technology like electron microscopes and all the details they know about it. They can pretty much figure it out if they have the full painting in a long period of time. But to not even have the painting or just having pictures of it, there's no way to really tell if it's a forgery or not, if it's a good one. So
yeah, they can do again, like I said, take a sample of the paint and then break it down by molecule.
Which
this is likely this is what they would use back then.
At the time,
it's 500 years old.
Right,
yeah, crazy.
But it's hard to say.
So crazy. So I think to start off the suspects, besides we already talked about the two guards.
But even if the two guards are suspected of being implicated, they're clearly not the two people who stole the paintings because they were still tied up in the morning and the paintings were gone. So
I personally don't want to rule them out for not being accomplices.
I could see that, but they could be accomplices,
they
but they clearly weren't the two cops that walked in, the two fake
yes.
cops.
Of course, yeah. So like again, they're likely probably not accomplices, but I can't say that they're not. I mean, with the multiple different gangs in Boston, and like there's just there could be, and how easy it was for them to come in and do it.
I would say as we get into it that if they were accomplices, then they were clearly strong-armed in doing it because they had no financial benefit whatsoever from it. These guys are, not to knock them, but they're in no better position now than they were when this heist happened. I mean, they're just still just chilling out, living their lives. They didn't really get a whole lot out of it. So if they were accomplices, they get fucked out of millions of dollars. And if they were strong-armed into doing it by maybe a more powerful organization than themselves, they might have felt like they were compelled to do it to save the lives of them or their families. Then they're accomplices. Yeah. I could buy that. I don't buy that they benefited from it, though. Really?
No, I don't see any benefit here. But they might have there might have been some crazy pressure, and that's
maybe
understandable.
Yeah.
So before we talk about people,
let's talk about animals.
Let's talk about animals. The
phoenix. It burns and it rises from the ashes. What's that all about?
The phoenix is pretty cool, man. I've seen some cool birds recently. In 1994 was the strongest lead they ever got. And it was a letter to the museum from supposedly the people who stole it. And they said, hey, we stole this. And we did it because we wanted to use it as a negotiation tool to get somebody out of prison.
And they get that letter from that because early on in the investigation, the FBI informed the museum that if they want to get these paintings back, which they want to at all costs, it would benefit them to put up a reward because even if the people who stole it won't come forward, if someone knows something, they're going to come forward if you give them some money. So they got $1 million together as a reward. If anyone could identify and find the paintings, they're going to pay $1 million, whether or not you were involved. So that was the first step to be like, let's get some tips. And that's why what you said, people start calling in all over the country to say, I think I saw it. I think I know something or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So again, this took 4 years for this to happen. And it was a third-party negotiator that said, I don't know the thieves, but this is my job. I'm writing to you guys to try to say that the artwork was stolen to reduce the prison sentence. But that opportunity has passed, and there's no longer a motive to keep the artwork, and they wanted to negotiate a return. So that was the first piece, and it was something like, they want immunity for themselves, everybody involved, and just $2.6 million, and we'll just give it all back, which is obviously, $198 million less than.
Yeah, it's a fraction of what it's worth. Yeah, and even on the black market, where obviously things are worth a lot less because where else are you going to sell it? Even on the black market, it's worth much more than $2 million.
Exactly. So this sounds like a smoking hot deal for the museum, especially.
Yeah, and ultimately they just want the paintings back, so they're going to do anything they can to get them back.
Yeah, exactly. They can either go in the black market and pay $200 million if they can even find it, or they can do it this way. So so basically, this third-party writer said, all right, so if you guys if you want to respond, put a coded message in the Boston Globe, which is cool. So they put that coded message in on May 1st, 1994. And they received a second letter and acknowledged the museum was interested in negotiating, but had become fearful of what the perceived was basically they're scared that the FBI is going to be too into this and they're going to get fucked and caught and taken over. It's just not organic, and somebody's you answer like, hey, they're calling you in, so then the FBI picks up at the same time and they're listening.
Yeah, and the museum thought the FBI wasn't interested enough in the case because they're busy busting almost every mobster in America at this time. They're still on a roll, destroying every mafia in America. So they could give a fuck about these paintings. Besides the fact that, like you said, these paintings might actually be being used to get these mob guys out of prison, which now the FBI is licking their chops, and the museum doesn't want a conviction as much as they want the paintings back. So their motivations are there. We want the paintings back at all costs. And if you jeopardize it by spooking them, we might lose our only lead of ever getting these things back again.
Yeah, exactly. So the writer got spooked and said, basically they need to evaluate their options, and they never heard from him again.
And that's that.
That's the last thing they heard.
I thought as the first suspect was interesting is that they looked into, obviously, who do we know? Because a lot of times when people are, committing crimes, they look to people who have committed crimes in the past and try to tie them to the crime itself. Mm-hmm. A lot of times this works out great. They find, murderers because people who have, been accused of this in the past, they find it out there, or charges like that. A lot of the times people have been wrongfully convicted because they are a past criminal and they were in the same area as a crime happened, and they wrongfully convicted and they go, oh, you robbed a bank once. Now here's another bank robbery. You were in the neighborhood. You're the guy, and then you're the fall guy. But in this case, it was in 1988, only 2 years prior, there was a major art heist in Yarmouth, Massachusetts. And it was similarly, someone walked in. They didn't need to be buzzed in like at this museum, but they walked in with a gun. They tied up the caretaker in a similar fashion, duct taped their eyes and their mouth, and they took 6 paintings and 1 Chinese artifact as well. That was at the Yarmouth Museum.
No way.
Which is interesting. I mean, I thought, whoa, this is a pretty similar crime, not that far away from Boston, out in the Cape there.
And the style. And
the style similar. And obviously, it's less money involved in that museum, but it's still very expensive. All these pieces, it's hard to match $500 million, but a lot of that. And that person, though, was convicted of that crime because he was a famous art thief. When I think of famous art thieves, I think of like a movie where there's a guy in like the curly mustache and a beret, and he's wearing the raccoon mask, and he's stealing the art, and he really appreciates the artwork, and he knows the guy to sell beyond it. But it's literally a guy from around Boston who was just really good at this, and his whole family was cops. His dad and all his brothers were cops, and he was like an art thief. Like that was his job. That wasn't the first time he did it. That was the first time when they convicted him in the 70s. They found out that he might have done this, and then this later crime, they figured it was him too because he had a history of trying to do this stuff. And he actually stole a Rembrandt from the Boston Museum of Art. And he used that with the FBI to try to negotiate his sentence lowering. He got it from 8 years to 4 years by telling them where that Rembrandt was. So this is sounds like we got a hot lead. It's 2 years earlier. It's a similar crime. He's even using Rembrandts to try to get a lesser sentence. We get this. I mean, it's the guy. Here's the thing. He was in prison at the time. They already caught him. So even though he's your guy, he's the type of guy who would do this shit, and they got him in the past doing it, he was in prison at the time of the robbery. So they figure, oh, well, we can't convict him because he couldn't have done it. That's your alibi. You're locked up. But I thought that was interesting because it's basically the exact same fucking crime. I mean, if he was loose, they would have pinned it on him easy.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
But how many famous art thieves are there in the greater Boston area? Maybe he knew a couple of fellas that might have been involved in this.
Somebody who's a criminal but needs a little bit of an influence and is like, I like the way that guy did, like sort of a copycat thing when we're gonna blow it out of the water instead of just go to a ship museum or whatever that guy robbed from.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an art museum. It's just not as large.
No, I know. Yeah, exactly. So that's who you think of when you think of art thieves?
No, now it is. But I would have never thought of that. I would have never thought of this guy from Boston going up to Yarmouth, and I mean, he's like a little Irish dude with a freaking beard and balding red hair, and he's like, yeah, I this fucking guy gets that. I'm like, you're an art thief? He was an expert. He knew exactly what paintings to take. He knew all this shit. I mean, he had I think he said around $1 million in Japanese art. He had these katanas that were worth $100,000 each, and he was selling it to people, within the community that weren't stolen. So he definitely knew about art one way or the other, but he stole so much of it that he's, obviously one of the biggest art thieves in history, and he's out of southern Massachusetts. It's very strange.
That's very strange.
He couldn't have been one of those fake cops that night because he was in prison at the time for stealing art. But maybe he threw a little advice their way. Who knows?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Miles Connor, what's his name? If I didn't say it already, I'll throw a picture
Miles
up.
Connor. It's just there's so many suspects because he's not even on my list. It's just a great story.
Well, I mean, he's not really a
so
suspect
similar.
because he couldn't have done it,
Right,
but I
he was
think
in
he
jail.
might have been associated just because that whole community is, obviously not very large.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, again, like it's just so hard to say like who we really think it is because like in 2013 the FBI announced that they identified like two people with a really high degree of confidence that they think is it that are attached to a mobster who's dead.
Yeah, multiple times they would say that we were right on the trail.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of this, and then so the interesting thing. So I'll get to that in a second. But I just want to say a funny fact because I just need this podcast to have this image. We're talking about thieves and heists and stuff. This is a diamond heist, but every time you say when you think who do you think of who robs like a robber, I just cannot help but think of already mentioned it the the stolen trousers are the wrong trousers from Wallace and
Oh,
Gromit.
the penguin, the penguin.
When the penguin puts on the rubber glove for a hat and it goes.
Yeah, it's the best.
That needs
then
to
I
be
think he's a rooster
right here. That's so funny when he puts it.
Disguise.
So good. So damn good. So this is generally hard to talk about at this point because the suspects are so tied to multiple different gangs. You get the Merlino gang, you have the Winter Hill gang, Whitey Bulger.
Well, let's expand that a little bit because the first number 1 and 2 punch after question marks and after this art thief is it the Irish mob or the Italian mob? Because they are committing crimes at an alarming rate over the past 20 years to the point where there's people showing up dead in Boston every fucking day, and they've already put half of them in prison. So what the hell is going on here? So the Irish mob obviously has ties to the Winter Hill gang and Whitey Bulger, and they had already been caught trying to move artwork in order to buy weapons for the Irish Republican Army, also known as the IRA, in Ireland, because at this time there's still a vicious terrorist battle going on with England to free Northern Ireland from their control.
This is what I'm saying. This is why it's so confusing.
So they figure maybe it's an Irish mob deal because they've already been caught moving paintings in the past. Maybe they stole these paintings in order to trade them for weapons, and they can ship them to Northern Ireland and fund this war that's going on at the IRA. But they couldn't trace it any further than that. And the IRA obviously denies anything like that. And they couldn't get any of the Irish gangs on actually traveling with these particular paintings for arms deals after this happened, even though it had happened in the past. That's one of the first things they thought. And obviously South Boston and Boston at the time, it's, the gangs and the mafias being half Irish and half Italian. It's not a bad guess, especially when things heating up in Northern Ireland at the time.
Yeah, and so so there's more details to this, which is why it's just it's generally hard to talk about. So the IRA and their rival, it's called the Ulster Volunteer Force, the UVF. They both had agents in Boston at the time. They both have done art heists recently in the past. And they both have a calling card of tripping the fire
of jizzing alarm. All over all of the frames.
Also tripping the fire alarm.
Oh, there you go. That's a fire alarm.
The fire alarm is their both of those groups' calling card. Before they do heist, they set the fire alarm off, and then they do the heist. So that's a really small detail. And again, this just could be coincidental because they're two stoners doing whatever. Like they could have just been smoking weed and said, we don't get caught smoking weed in the basement or wherever these alarms are going off. I think they're actually in the rooms of the art, but and so there's one guy named Charlie Hill, and he's a retired art antiquities investigator for Scotland Yard, and and he says very, very clearly that Whitey Bulger gave the works the IRA, and they're most likely in Ireland. So you have a guy whose job is to investigate this stuff. Said that these paintings are in Ireland. But that's just one story. Everybody is so confident that they know who it is.
Yeah, everyone knows
FBI, this guy, that guy. Everyone's. So the thing is, even today, even the most recent thing about the FBI says they're pretty sure who it is. But then you have every suspect is like, it's most likely him. It's the craziest thing. Everybody's got a con card. Everyone's like, oh yeah, this, just like you said, if that guy wasn't in jail who you just mentioned, it'd be like, there's no question it's him.
It's got to be him.
I don't know, he puts duct tape on people. It's that, but no, this is a crazy story.
Yeah. So if it's not, which it could be, like I say, we don't know who it is, but if it's not the Irish mob, then what's the other alternative? It's the Italian mob, where that particular year, 20 of them all went to prison on, RICO charges and extortion charges and all those things like that. And they figured they could have put in, a similar thing to what Connor did, which is that maybe I can use one of these pieces of art and I can kind of parlay this into getting a lesser sentence because we know it's worked in the past. Of course, the FBI says, the whole thing, we don't negotiate terrorists. Just because you steal art doesn't mean we give you a lesser sentence. But when it happens, it happens. So you figure they're just saying that so that they don't encourage it. But they want the piece of art back more than they want you in prison because it's worth more than your life. It's the strange thing about it. Money really is the whole example and the equalizer of this. If what you did is wrong and you're convicted of it, why you giving it back makes it okay is because they want it back more than they want you in prison. The $100 million piece of art that you took is worth more to us than you rotting in prison because we actually don't care about you at all. We want the art back, and we're only punishing you for stealing it. So you give it back, we'll let you out early. And that's when the Italian mafia is put in the sights of this. And I think that this particular gang of folks that they had to figure out who they were over the years and years following the heist is my lead that I believe closest to what actually happened.
So but it's hard to say. So I think just because I just trust the FBI, that it's most likely very clearly one Italian mob, and it's the Merlino gang, Carmelo Merlino. But there's also another guy who's part of the Patriarca crime family who lines up so fucking good as well.
Well, I mean, he's the famous Providence Don, Raymond Patriarca, who really ran shit in Providence for years and years before they took him down. He used to sit out on the coin op right where I used to live on that street. Remember we were getting breakfast? Yeah. He used to hang out right on that road right there, Raymond Patriarca, yeah.
No kidding. Something. That's crazy.
So a couple of those old guys you saw smoking cigars probably bumped elbows with him and his associates back in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, it's something, man. It's really crazy. So, the Merlino gang, Carmelo Merlino, again, I believe he's related to the bailout in prison, like using this to reduce sentences. There's someone from the Merlino gang was in prison. Can get my story.
He wasn't in prison yet, though. But yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. But I just wanted to bring up this quick thing first before they go in prison, because why they think they were associated was because they hadn't gone in prison at the time. But what led me there first is this guy Lou Royce, who works for the Italian mob in a minor capacity, was arrested on conspiracy to rob this museum, the Gardner Museum. A year before it ever happened, he was already arrested. His idea was to go in there and throw a smoke bomb. And in the ensuing panic and all kinds of pandemonium, he was going to steal some paintings and take it with him. They caught him before he was going to do it, but he worked for this particular mafia chapter that we're now talking about these guys doing it now. So they already thought that this has been a plan for years in the books. They knew something about the museum, and this guy goes to prison for this particular conspiracy before the Merlino gang allegedly might be trying the same thing off a little bit more creatively at this point.
Yep, exactly. So like you said, there were plans from them to actually do this in the past that they were busted on, which is nuts. It's just insane. And the fact that they still have just the crappiest security ever just blows my mind. It's like,
that's the other thing. We have like a conviction on someone planning to do it, and they didn't change security at all.
Like, oh, no one cares about this shit. It's like, no, they definitely do.
So we caught him, didn't we? Yeah, but what about next week when they try to do it again?
And the word's out. There's plenty of gangs around here. If someone gets the value of this stuff, they can either sell weed for all of eternity to make up for one painting, or they can just go in there and just slip one out of the painting.
All right.
Crazy shit. Shit. It's the craziest thing. So, so we'll start with, again, I don't even know if this is where we should start, but because, yeah, you get the Providence crowd and the Boston crowd and Carmelo Merlino. The FBI in 2013 announced that they really think that the primary suspects, George Reisfelder and Leonardo DiMuzio, who are just associates, just like in The Sopranos, all the guys who go out and actually kill the people. Well, I mean, Tony does too, but you know, the guys who are in the woods, like chase them down. I forget their names. It's like two of those guys.
Yeah, the workers.
The workers. They resemble the police sketches, and they all died within 1 year of the heist by, suicide or.
Here's the interesting thing you bring up. The whole Merlino gang, by the time they can get any dirt on them, they're all dead.
Yeah.
Besides one of them, but we'll bring him up later. But yeah, they've all died. Whether they've been murdered by gunfire or, cocaine overdose as far as Reisman. But again, who knows if that was, here or there. Just to bring up, not Reisman, sorry, Reisfelder, as part of the gang here. This guy in particular did 11 years in prison for a murder charge that was overturned. So they said that they actually wrongfully convicted him. So now he's on the outside just around the time that this heist happens, within a year or so. And not only is he now on the outside, and Massachusetts did not compensate him for his false conviction, he just had to do 11 years for a crime he either did not commit or did commit and then got away with it because they let him out. He was out on the loose, and he starts associating with these kind of characters. And as part of the story that I found interesting, the lady who said, "I hate water," is actually his sister-in-law. And in the interview, she talks about going to his house. She loved the guy. Going to his house to help him hang up a painting. And the painting that she described is right there for the shade Tortoni, which is the small painting that was stolen from the Blue Room, the only one not on the level. And as she was helping him hang it up, she said, "Well, what's that frou-frou frame? I mean, this is no place for a man's house to have a golden frame on it." And he goes, No, I had to get it all measured up. And she said, "What did you pose for the painting?" She's giving him all kinds of shit like an old Boston lady should. And it wasn't until later on, when the case was brought back into the public, they changed the reward from $1 million to $5 million. She goes, "Actually, that is exactly the painting I was looking for, the one of the man across the table." And she claims that is almost certainly the painting, one of the paintings rather, that was taken in the heist, that she saw him have at his house before his cocaine overdose. And it was never seen in that apartment by any law enforcement officers. When they came to the scene, it wasn't there.
So crazy.
And he fits the description, in my likelihood, of the guy who was wearing the fake mustache and the glasses, because he was the taller one with a bowl cut. They didn't say he had a bowl cut in the description, but in all the pictures of him, he's got a bowl cut as a 40-year-old man. It's a very funny look. Hopefully we'll throw him up here.
It's a very funny look.
So he might have been involved in the heist, or she might just be full of shit. Who knows?
That's crazy, though.
But yeah, so his life is tragic either way. And if he committed a murder or committed this heist, but he died before they could get any more information out of him, and so did one of the other guys who said it was murdered. Another person who said he was going to testify against another person in the gang was murdered as well. I mean, this tight-knit group of guys who are willing to apparently silence anyone involved in this art heist, or if they weren't, they definitely were good at keeping their mouth shut about it, because they're all dead now, save one man who is not dead.
And the thing is that none of us know this, but if it's just in someone's kitchen who's just a seemingly nobody.
Yeah, I mean, this lady was looking at this priceless painting, and she was knocking jokes about it like she had no idea what it even was. Why would you?
Yeah.
If you're not an art expert.
Exactly. And the craziest thing is that nobody, doesn't seem there's any transactions going on. Nobody made any money off this. They're just sitting on millions of dollars of paintings that they can't do anything with. So they have it above their kitchen table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
until the cops didn't see it there, and who knows where it went from there. But
Right.
likely someone came in and killed him, and then took the painting. Like it's
And
just
then
wild.
then it keeps moving. The trail keeps getting deeper. So to round out that gang, though, I want to ramp the other member, which is the guy who's still alive today, which is David Turner. He's another member of that Merlino gang at that time, and people think he might have been another person who was involved in the crime. If he wasn't the guy who went in to actually rob the place, he was at least involved, because he was involved with that whole crime family. Got up to no good multiple times, suspicious work history, things like that. At the time, his alibi was he was in Florida. They couldn't guarantee that, besides to hear that his girlfriend said he was there, and they had him a receipt of him turning in a rental car in Florida 2 days later. But here's the thing. There was a different license number on the rental car, leading some investigators to think that he might have given the rental car to someone else and had them drop it off in Florida. And there's your alibi right there. You weren't around. My girlfriend said I wasn't there, so I wasn't there. But they put the screws to this guy later that year when they tried to pull off the second biggest heist in Boston. They hadn't seen the town yet, hadn't been out yet. They wanted to rob the Loomis truck depot, which is where all that money comes in for all those cash carrying trucks. And him and 3 other guys. So we have Merlino, some other Italian kid, and then a third guy. They're all planning on robbing this place. But the third guy is an FBI informant, and he goes in and plans the whole thing out with them. And on the night of the robbery, they arrest all the guys involved. They let the informant off, obviously. And they start putting the screws to Merlino and Turner, not just because they're about to do this huge robbery. They want to get them for the paintings. They think they're involved, so they're we can book them on this huge Loomis robbery, and then we can say, tell us where the paintings are, and we'll help you out. Even though they said, oh, no, you can't negotiate with it. But they wanted to get him for this. So they booked him on that. And suspiciously, within that time period, David Turner's 40-year sentence he gets for this conspiracy to perform armed robbery, which is a large sentence for conspiracy, not actually performing it. He gets his sentence knocked off 7 years during this time, from 2032 to 2025, and is completely off the record. It's no change in laws. There's no legislation change. It's just that it just drops down, and no one's any the wiser besides some reporters that are kind of grinding their teeth saying, what the fuck? Why is this happening? They think that he's involved in this. Is he given any information, or hasn't he? And they don't know anything more about it than that, besides that Turner says he's innocent of the whole thing. He's not involved in any of it, as far as the art heist goes. That's just right to me.
It's wild. So you know a lot about this half of things.
Right.
So you mentioned everybody so far, but you didn't talk about Bobby Donati too much, right?
Actually, I haven't brought him up at all. Please bring him up right now.
And on my list, he's the only person that...
Another person
really
who, unfortunately, we can't
yet.
ask him about it right now because he got plugged as well.
Yeah.
Within the same year.
Exactly. He died in 91 at the age of 40-something. He was born in 1940.
Within the same 12 months, I should say, not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But he's not who the FBI lines up as their most valuable asset here, because he's not associated with the Merlino gang. They really think it's the Merlino gang. He's part of, like I said, the Providence.
The Merlino gang was a lower part of the mafia. This guy Donati, as well as his friend Bobby Garanti, were, high up in the mafia. They actually made moves. They made decisions, and they had a bunch of dough. This Merlino gang is one of the gangs that was kind of gunning for to be more important in pulling off things like that. Might have been part of it, but Donati and Bobby Garanti were much more important people than Merlino. Merlino was a guy who was getting long in the tooth, getting old in age, and realizing he was never going to be a big mafia don like these guys were. But his gang could do what they could, I guess.
And his gang could do it for him, just like a lot of, in The Sopranos, he makes decisions, the father does decisions from the old white guy.
Precisely.
The guy does things from jail. He still runs the mob from jail.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that gang, we think did it. It wasn't him himself who did it. It was his guys who would have done the actual thief, not the main boss. Mm-hmm. But that's not different. That's not too different from Bobby Donati. He's Donati and this side of things says that Donati and a criminal named David Houghton were the masterminds for your pal Connor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I know about Bobby Donati, is that he's operating on behalf of same thing, somebody more powerful than him.
Because Miles Connor was friends with both Bobby Garanti and Bobby Donati, and had associated with them in the past. Right.
Yeah, in the past on art heists.
Mm-hmm. So there's a bunch of names that keep coming together for these particular types of crimes. It's hard to believe it's a coincidence.
Yeah, and they were going to use, they had a plan together, and they were going to use this to get Connor out of jail. So Donati came to Connor in jail and said, "This is how we're going to get you out."
Right. So as far as that goes, we got the rest of the gang in prison or dead this time before Donati is murdered as well. Probably not for this heist, just because he was part of a huge mafia charge, and he could have been. The rest of the guys are pretty much involved in the heist as far as we know, or we might assume. But Bobby Garanti is still alive and on the outside, and he worked very closely with the gang we've been speaking about. And in particular, he was a big fan of Mr. David Turner, who he quote in the past said he's like a son to him. And as he was getting on years in the early 2000s, there is a record of Garanti trying to float a deal with the FBI saying, "I might have some pieces of art that you might be interested in if you can work a deal out with me." And they were suspicion that he was trying to get Turner out of jail early. He was doing a 40-year sentence. He was a guy in his early 20s. And Garanti, we'll pull up a picture of him. He was a not too healthy guy. I'm sure he enjoyed his share of pasta and wine, and he was not in good health. And he figured, well, if he did have the art, he didn't have the heart. The heart was failing. But if he had the art, he might be able to use that to kind of parlay a deal for Turner here. And that never came to fruition because he did die of natural causes in 2004 before that ever came together. But the FBI did their due diligence. They drove to his house in Maine to interview his wife about it. And when they first showed up, they said, "Oh, we just want to talk to you, this, that, and the other thing." And she was all calm and collected and hanging out with the police for a while until they brought up the idea of these missing paintings, and she was visibly shaken. And she told the police that, I know about the paintings. I was always trying to tell them to get rid of the paintings. So they're obviously chomping at the bit thinking this lady knows this is the guy. He ultimately came out with the paintings all together. But she didn't have any information on their whereabouts or anything like that, just a couple of ideas left and right. So that didn't work out for them, even though they were more than happy to grill her about that whole thing. So
Interesting.
I only have one guy left, and it's the guy who was associated closely with that Garanti guy, which the FBI actually raided his house.
Donati was also close friends with Garanti.
Yeah, they were very close friends. Donati and Garanti, both Bobbies.
And part of why it could have been Donati is that, so one, Donati and the other guy he was with, or they said who conspired this plan to get, their dude out of jail, don't fit the description at all, which is not uncommon. It's that they hired two other dudes to actually do the dirty work.
Right. They don't actually have to be the ones who physically did it to be involved in the crime.
Yep. Exactly. So this is the craziest thing. So like there's Donati brought, or Donati's accomplice brought a investigator from, whether was it the just investigative reporter from the Globe or from one of those. Yeah, it was actually it was the Boston Herald. The
Herald, I think, broke a lot of these. Their investigators were on top of this shit, as far as I understand.
Yep. Exactly. So Youngworth, one of their guys named Youngworth, picked up this guy named Mashberg, who was an investigative reporter for the Boston Herald, and drove him to a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And
Youngworth, for the record, was storing Miles Connor's artwork in a trailer. All this priceless art that Miles had stolen or procured, Youngworth was storing for them, and he was selling it behind his back when he was in prison.
Oh, shit.
So he was figuring when Connor gets out, he's going to kill you because he stole all his art behind his back. But Youngworth is now talking to a reporter, knowing that his feet are to the fire. He's going to try to maybe use this information about the art heist to get his way out of it here, because Youngworth was brought up on charges when he talked to the Boston Herald reporter. He wasn't just talking to reporters to show off, "Hey, check it out. Let's go, take me down to New York and check out my art." He was thinking this reporter might help him tell the police He sees him because you can't bring a cop there. They can seize the art, but if you bring a reporter there, they can't take it from you, and they might be able to tell the police that, oh, don't worry, he's got it, and if you work with him, we'll be all set. I mean, you already know he's been selling this art for Connor, so maybe, you know. So then, you know, you have the Herald reporter being driven down to Red Hook on a midnight. Yeah, that's a creepy ride. I don't think I'd take that ride. Yeah, reporters are brave, man.
This is Brooklyn back then. It was not a good place, and yeah, it's pretty much it. And then they said that they took out the one of the cylinder tubes because there were multiple of them. Like, so it's not like they just had one painting. It looks like they had all 13.
And he pulls out one of the biggest, baddest boys in there, which is the Storm of Galilee, the Rembrandt, the only one he ever painted a seascape.
It's so great. I mean, it's a one. Every single painting everyone should Google because they're just absolutely incredible.
Oh no, I'll put them up.
Okay, yeah, put them up.
Sure.
They're just like the coolest paintings ever, and I kind of want to just make a room in my house that is just these paintings. And
that would be so cool. Just have all the stolen paintings.
Those who know, you know.
Yeah,
and those who hey, those are really cool art. You must really like art. You go, yeah, I love art, and you just
you can't see them anywhere.
And then people start to realize what they are, and then they go, that's funny. Yeah. You only have the stolen art from the Gardner Museum. I want to do that.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. So anyway, the art seems like it was there, like I said. The Boston Herald reporter saw it. They saw the cut lines and everything else. Like I said, they pulled out just that one painting of this.
Right, but the Herald reporter is not an art expert. And this guy was on his last rope, and then he knew he had to show him some bullshit. And it might have been the painting. And it might not have been, but he would have shown him it either way. So
so no one can prove.
Well, I don't know if it definitely probably was. I think it very well could have been.
It could have been.
But this guy was in trouble from the police. He was selling art in the back. This guy didn't know shit about it. If he was holding on to someone for somebody, I understand that. But I feel like if he was showing the Boston Herald this piece, we have multiple guys murdered just for being involved in it, I don't think he would have made it very far. I mean, my suspicions that this guy was trying to bullshit them into saying that he was involved with it because he knew this art world, he knew these guys, he knew how the game was played, and I think that he showed this reporter who was none the wiser at 4 a.m. in Red Hook, this is the painting, now take it back and tell the cops. I mean, the cops obviously wanted to know more about it, but they really couldn't verify anything beyond that, just because he would be giving up the painting at that point. So it's hard to say. My suspicion about this guy is that he obviously knew a shit ton about art. Doesn't mean that he had the painting.
Right. So, yeah. So, again, that absolutely is 100% possible. Just like it also could be it, too. I mean, no one really knows. So,
could be it. That could have been it right there because they obviously wanted to move it immediately afterwards in case the cops do show up to that warehouse. So when the cops do check it out, it's not there. But if it was true, they would move it anyways. If it wasn't true, you have to move it. So they couldn't find it there.
Which is exactly what happened. So the FBI raided it and said, we found nothing. It's like,
and then you find
exactly
nothing.
How this works. Like, you're not going to go there and find the paintings.
Exactly.
They're not hard to move. So, that's how it comes down. And then the one thing I didn't say yet is, and it's the same thing. This is a he said, she said. It's like,
it all is, right?
What a weird thing to say. Like, it's all weird. We're talking mobsters here. You can't possibly just make sense of what they do. Donati and Garanti were seen at a club in Revere shortly before the robbery with a bag of police uniforms. What the fuck does that mean? But
I mean, obviously they could have had police uniforms for other crimes, but like that's pretty important.
It's pretty vague.
That's pretty important.
Oh, it's important, but it's also vague.
But it's vague.
It's just like saying I went to a warehouse in Brooklyn and saw all the paintings.
Exactly. It's interesting and it's important, but they could have had those uniforms for anything. It doesn't mean it was particularly being used in that crime right then. Yeah.
Well, exactly. All these people are close with the BPD, especially Whitey Bulger.
It's hard to get police uniforms if you're a regular person, but not if you're tied to the mob and the police and all that. You can get them pretty easy.
You can get them no problem. So
yep.
That's the thing. That's why this is just such a hard case to solve. Is that there's so many genuinely real leads here that and leads and motive. It's not like one guy just woke up and said like the Las Vegas shooter, like no one, like why did he do that? No one really even knows still.
Right. We still don't know.
And there's no,
but even he planned it for weeks in advance. It wasn't just spur of the moment thing.
Right, right, right. Well, exactly. But even that, no one knows his motive. They still don't. He's not associated with like, crazy groups and stuff. He's just a psycho, they think.
Yeah.
But like this is like there's very clear motive for every fucking lead.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
there's
they
motive for
used it
every
as a
lead.
tool to get someone out of jail. They used it for this. Like it's the motives are here. It's like it's not like this just a random thing, which is just the fantasy of it is just so damn cool. And you go, this is something that happened. But it's like,
I
oh,
know.
this is so much deeper than that, and you're just lucky you're not there that day. That's all.
I know it. That's the last one that I wanted to bring up, which is can you tell me the name of that gang again? We've been talking about this whole goddamn time. I can't remember his fucking name.
The
Mulatto. What's his name? Mulatto.
there's the
Something like that.
Patriarcha, and then there's the
No. The gang.
I know,
not
the Merlino.
Merlino. Thank you. The Merlino gang.
Isn't
So
Merlino a tuna? No.
I don't know.
Can of tuna, Merlino tuna? Am I making that up?
Chicken of
You
the
add
sea.
any last name to a can tuna and go, yeah, it's Straziano tuna. Like it just sounds like, oh yeah, I can. Like albacore.
Bumblebee tuna.
Bumblebee. But
So years later, he people associated with him. He's out in Connecticut, and people. It's another mob ideas out in Connecticut. People are spread out. This is now in the mid 2000s. We're well past the time of the mafia running the cities like they used to, and a lot of them are in prison. Sometimes running it still from prison, but not nearly as powerful as they used to be. And there's this old shyster retired mobster guy named Bobby Gentile or Gentile. I assume he's not Jewish, but he's has this home down in Connecticut, and he's an old mobster guy, but he never had that much power. He just mostly like a bookie, a mover. He's like a liar for life. He'll lie to his own friends, things like that. He's got this house down in Connecticut, and he buys an auto mechanic shop, as you do when you're a mobster. You got to have the auto shop so your guys come in and smoke cigars and is a front. So he buys one there, and he replaces one of the grease pits with a kitchen, full stove, sink, fridge, the whole thing. And he starts having these, Sunday dinners and smoking and playing poker with all these old retired mob guys. So guys who basically the rarefied air of getting out of it. And mostly you either die or go to prison when you're in the mob. But some guys just make their way out, and they're 86 years old. They're rich, and they've probably been responsible for the deaths of countless innocent lives. And now they're hanging out, eating spaghetti and meatballs, talking over the old war stories. The war being the war on the American public and murdering innocent people. I know it's obviously fun to watch mob movies, and you think how cool it'll be to smoke a cigar and rob a cigarette truck and all this interesting, sexy shit. But I really think these guys are really piece of shit scumbags. And the idea of all these old dudes sitting around a table eating spaghetti meatballs and telling the tales of how they cut a guy's head off because he owed them money is really fucking sadistic and fucked up. And these guys should not be glorified.
It's like the movie Killing Them Softly. It's so much like that. Have you seen that?
Yes.
When they walk downstairs
Yes, I have.
to go whatever it is, then they're all playing cards, and then they're like, then all of them are, or this is the game they play, and they're these two really naive robbers who walk down there with shotguns and the thing over their head.
Yep.
And these guys are like, you walked in the wrong fucking.
Yeah, we have all seen all this shit before.
Yeah,
like
we can tell you're scared as shit, and we're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I thought when you said that. These old guys who.
So
retired,
the FBI.
Yeah.
Yes. So the FBI gets an informant into the. He starts having dinner with this group, and basically he gets to hear every weekend all the mobsters telling tales of all the shit they ever did and never got caught for. They're all old, fat Italian dudes for the most part, telling tales. And obviously they talk about it like pros. Doesn't matter how old they get. They go, remember that thing in Hartford when the guy da. So the FBI is like, try to get this guy Gentile to talk about this art, because we think he was friends with Garanti. He knew Donati. He knew these guys. And so he must be involved in some way. And he finally, after weeks of asking these guys, what do you think about the art house? Oh, I can't talk about that. Can't talk about the art house. Seems to be the one thing they can never talk about, even though they trust this guy. And the FBI gets tired of waiting, and they ask him to buy drugs off the guy. The guy gives a bottle of Dilaudid and says, oh, I'll give you $300. I'll give you this. And then they get him on a drug charge because he offers to sell the guy the thing, and they have it on tape. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But first of all, Dilaudid is a very strong, it's like morphine. It's crazy strong. It's really the strongest drug they can give you in the hospital, right? To kill the pain and just really put you out.
That's an opiate.
I'm allergic to Dilaudid. It's on my list.
Oh shit! You better hope you don't get any gunshot wounds.
When I tell them like what my allergies, I'm like Dilaudid's on there. I've had Dilaudid.
Did they give it to you when you broke your arm? They must have, right? That's like when they would have the extreme pain scenario.
Why did I have Dilaudid? No, I got morphine for that.
Yeah, well, morphine's a good cousin of it if you're not allergic to that. You know,
I had morphine when I broke my arm, and it was phenomenal. But I had Dilaudid.
Dilaudid's supposed to be even stronger than morphine, though, in the hospital setting.
And I got Dilaudid. I don't remember what happened, but I got Dilaudid.
Yeah, imagine being an old guy having a prescription for Dilaudid. I mean, that's fucking. That's really heavy prescription to get at your house. You can just pop those by yourself. But so, anyways, that's how they book the guy, and then obviously they don't care about the drug charge. It's not even a drug charge. They're trying to put the screws to him, and the first thing they want to ask him is, "Where's this fucking art? You're the last guy who's alive, and we can actually ask about this shit." And he's in his late 80s. He's gonna die soon, anyways. They figure they pop him on this. We won't tell it now. And the FBI raids his house, and they take his house apart. They have ground penetrating radar in the yard. They start digging up the yard.
That's why they said it was buried. So
they go into his garage. They find a trap door in his garage. They open it up. It's got a box in it, and they're like, "This has got to be the paintings." It's got weed and a gun in there. They're like, "Motherfucker!"
Damn it!
And his lawyer's there, being like, "This is absurd." You know, you don't have any of that shit. And they do end up finding something, though. It's not the paintings, unfortunately, or we wouldn't be talking about this now. But they find a newspaper article about the heist in the Gardner Museum, along with a yellow piece of legal pad that has the name of every piece of art and their price on it in his house. So this is at this point, 20-something-year-old piece of archival data. This old, not important, lying shyster kind of mobster guy has in his home, which to me at the very least means he knows more about it than he's putting forth, because why would you have a list of every painting? I mean, a lot of these guys wouldn't even know the names of the paintings, and the guy has a price on all of them, and he gets saved a newspaper article because your ego has to have that. So they find that, they get him up on more gun charges because they find guns in his house, and they try to put the screws to him, and they can't get anything out of him. And even as he was dying, he said, "I don't know anything about any paintings. I don't know what you're talking about." But I don't believe him. He knew something. I'm not saying that he had them or that he was directly involved, but he clearly knew something about it, and he did not give it up. But he was close friends with Donati and Durante. He knew the guys who had robbed the joint. He knew something about paintings. He had a goddamn list of them, and obviously he was not willing to talk about it when he didn't know he was mic'd up. But he knew about the crime. He just said, "I'm not talking about the art thing." So. He's another guy who we're not going to get any word out of, because he's another guy who has passed away in the time in between.
So the good news is, I don't know, this would be a really fun surprise if the secret for this came out soon. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's something that these are Saudi princes that are sitting on them. They sound like they're scared ex-mobsters who are sitting on these paintings every morning when they wake up and have their coffee. And at this point, the best news about that is why I'm saying this is that it's not the mobsters, because they're all dead. It's their kids or the grandkids who have them, who go, "I got a secret," and they might just go to the cops and say, "Look, got some big fucking news. I didn't do it. I inherited this shit, and
well, you could cash in a $10 million reward today."
I need the reward, and they're all yours, because I don't want any part to do with this. It's blood money to me. So,
obviously, if you're the kids, you're going to have to talk to the cops for probably a week straight, but you might get away with having $10 million and no criminal charges at all.
Hey, you guys said this is the reward. I'm just going to collect it.
I didn't know what it was. I do now, and I'm doing the right thing here. Doing
the right thing. Go back to the museum. Can you imagine how fucking great that would be? The whole
now at this point, I want anyone. I don't want to know. I even want to know if they're destroyed. I would just like to know what happened and they could. Obviously, I wish that they would be returned in good condition, but I feel like if they're returned at all, it would still be in poor condition. There's no way they're being taken care of properly to any capacity. You'd be hoping that they're even recognizable at this point. I mean, if they're still around.
I don't care. I want to see them. That's still fun with me. But so yeah, it's likely based off of one of the other things I read that they're buried.
Could be
around somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I mean, it's unlikely they're hanging on someone's wall unless it is in another country which people don't know about it. Then you can just hang it up with impunity. But if they're in a Boston area, you better not hang that shit up. If someone notices, you're getting put on the hook for everything.
Exactly. But the thing is, you just go have people over and you go, yeah, I'm really rich, but I bought these replicas. Pretty cool, right? I'm like, wow,
yeah,
oh my God, this is like a replica. And you go, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It's really good though. I paid
not the real one.
$1,500 per painting for the replica. It's like, no, it's the fucking real one.
And it's like your future arena has all the stolen ones.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all replicas. You believe that?
It's just like weird thing with this room. It's little replicas.
It looks like the real thing. There's cracks in the paint.
Yeah, then one guy comes in there and they're like, yeah, I don't know.
We're going to have to seize all these replicas.
Yeah, this is a weird joke. I don't think this is too good to be
right under your nose. Too ballsy to believe.
Yeah, exactly. It's the governor. Got replicas.
Yeah, it's the governor. It's Cuomo in the New York
office. His office they just is live on every day. Has them back there.
Yeah, it's in his Zoomy. It's like, there's no way you put it right there. Obviously, it's fake. There's no way you do that. The balls.
Well, that's honestly, this is the perfect, absolute best way to hide something in plain sight. Urinals, the Museum of Science. Everyone's.
They'll never think that's the one.
No.
Oh, what a nice piece of art.
We got replicas of these stolen paintings because it's funny, in the bathrooms at the Museum of Science in Boston. Everyone goes, oh, that's funny.
Yes. And I do like how they could easily put up replicas of the stolen paintings just to add to the aesthetic of the museum. But not only is it the right thing to do to leave them empty, which makes it way cooler, it's also not what Isabella Stewart Gardner wanted. She said, don't change it at all. And if changing it means leave the frame there and not the painting, and so be it.
She don't want a bunch of fake bullshit in this world. I understand her.
No.
I have this the older I get, the more I appreciate excellence as far as design and quality goes. It's like fake wood floors versus real wood floors. What are you going to choose? And you're going to know whether or not
fake doors.
And there's just such a difference. Example, your apartment is incredibly well built. It's a nice fucking place. You have nice ass floors. You have nice shit. And you could build a new 2021 model of that and it just wouldn't be as nice. It just wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the vinyl fake wood and shit.
You've got crown molding. You've got good molding. You've got those things. Those are things that people want. Because it's a 100-year-old wood, which is different than modern day wood because it's not from the farm.
Yeah.
On top. So so for her to have some replica fucking painted.
No, she wouldn't want that. No.
Fuck that.
No, she had impeccable taste. She wouldn't want it ruined by, and that's kind of conceding too. As soon as you put up the fake one, you go, oh, we're already saying there's nothing going to be here ever again because, it's lost forever, but they still hold out hope. And I didn't mention earlier, but the museum director who was working there during the time of the heist hadn't even been working there only a few months when this happened. Imagine getting hired on, and then your first year working, it's like the biggest art heist in history. You're like, fuck. That sucks. It's not easy. Do you want to take one more commercial break? We'll get the final thoughts and wrap this bitch up. Sure. We're going a little long in the tooth here. I love talking about this shit.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Good fucking afternoon, guys. Today's episode is brought to you by B.O.B.
Dylan Joe from the Dylan Joe Based Podcast are back to give you our final thoughts on the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
Final thoughts.
I'm going to start off with my final thoughts. I think that there's 3 possible conclusions here, and right. I'm at a position which I usually haven't taken on this that I
doggy style.
Really, that's a good one, and it's not where I'm going right now with this though.
I'm sorry, my head's in the gutter.
Definitely a top 2, easy. Best
easy top
way to go out. But one, no one mentioned Elizabeth Stewart Gardner, how she could be a suspect. No one said that yet.
Right.
She could be a suspect.
The crime came from inside the house.
Exactly. She was very picky. She died 1924 or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Well before the heist.
She could have just said to people, hey, in 1990, you guys got to do something for me because this is the best museum in the world, according to her, and she needs people to come here. So what better is to have blank frames because they're fucking creepy and cool, and I want to go to just see these. I want to see the rest of it, But
Me too, but I really want to see the blank frames.
You walk into the Dutch room and you go,
"This is the room."
Yeah,
I want to find that door too. I want to find that secret door and knock on it.
Yep.
They must have sealed it up by now, but I want to knock on that bitch to see if
I
it's
want to
still
know. I have yet to come across a genuine secret door in a place like this, like behind a bookcase.
That would be one.
The bookcase swirls like in James Bond. I want to see that.
Yeah. So also, we didn't say the art was insured against everything: fire, water, smoke.
So
besides theft.
So it wasn't insured for theft.
It was insured from everything except for theft.
No shit.
And theft is what happened to them. So they had no insurance for that shit. So, you can't even get the payout. What a pain in the ass.
Yeah, exactly. So, but she's obviously not about the money. She came from her father was her father made linens. He was a famous linen dude, who like imported and sold.
Well, she wasn't about the money because she spent all her money to build a big museum and then said never change it. But obviously she had. You might imagine how much money it takes to not only build this fucking thing in the 1800s, but also fill it with priceless paintings. She had some fucking money before, she died.
She inherited all of her money. It's very clear based off of the Wikipedia page. But she could have done something weird and said to some secret group like, hey, like the Illuminati or the Boston police, and said, hey, you need to steal these paintings in 1990, make it happen.
Yeah, who knows?
It's my legacy, because everyone else obviously respected her way past her death. Option number two.
Number two? Okay.
Yep. Option number 2 for potential thing is the wild card no one knows. Option number 3 is...
I mean, there also could be someone who we don't...
That's what I'm saying.
Number 2, it could be someone you haven't even heard of yet, and they're just sitting back being like, this is perfect. Everyone else has a solid motive, and I'm just here just not even... Or, I mean, it has to be 2 people, but still, it's like we're in the clear. In that case... Never talk about it ever, and you will go to your grave never getting caught. So good for you.
Well, exactly. So it could be just 2 brothers who are just like, you want to spice it up a little bit.
Just 2 brothers.
St. Pat's Day go fucking crazy right now. Could happen.
Yeah, it could be the Boondock Saints pulled it off.
It could be them. They're Irish.
2 brothers on St. Patrick's Day up to no good.
Going crazy. Option number 4 is it could be
number 3.
I think that was 3.
No, that was still 2. I hijacked your 2. I'm sorry about that. You had 3 options. This is the 3rd one now.
I decided I'm gonna have 4 though now.
You motherfucker.
All right, number 3 is you already mentioned it, but maybe it was the director at the time. He said, "Guys, it's 1990." It's 1990 at the time, and
I want to lose my job I just got. So I hope. I hope we lose $500 million real quick. What the fuck kind of? That's obviously not who it is. If she had any motive at all, I'd be like, okay, maybe it's her. She was devastated about it, and she still talks like she said it was like a death in the family. Like, okay, well, it's just paintings.
That's what they all say. So she could have been like, all right. So here's the thing: is cash on hand is better than 5 in the bush.
Did you say that? It's a cliche for a reason, right?
So basically, they have a lot of assets, but they don't have a lot of cash flow because they're reliant on Elizabeth Stewart Gardner's whatever crazy trust.
Right, and it was her job to revitalize the museum and get more people to come in. What gets more people to come in than the biggest art heist in American history?
Yeah, we need to make more money and get more security systems, but no one's letting us have it.
All right. I'm on board now.
What a better way to get more customers than to have some crazy fucking heist going on. They might have just pissed and shit and burned the paintings for all we know.
Yeah, and she didn't even get fired. She was a director until 2016, I think. So, I mean, if you're ever going to get fired, I know it wasn't on her, but if you're the director then that happens, they should can you just for, I mean, if you're the manager of a baseball team and the pitcher lets up a home run in the 9th inning, they fire your ass. It doesn't matter you threw it or not. They blame you. They did not blame her for any of this shit. She was completely absolved of all blame immediately.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? You sold me on it. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But you did sell me.
Just like the Pico Mill, another reason, just like the, the famous, another conversation, but the famous Namke Cotton Factory, aka the Pico Mills in Salem, Massachusetts, they had multiple problems with safety and fires. So all the workers were all getting fucked, and they were put in horrible situations, and they were like, "This is unsafe." So they decided to light it on fire and said, "Hey, you should have had fire alarms, but you didn't."
Bust the place out.
and so now they have fire alarms.
Funny how that works.
And then option number, what are we at, 10 now? Was the thing is that there's a lot of evidence around two different gangs. Again, Whitey Bulger probably knows what happened, but I can't say he's directly involved. And a lot of the reason he's not really involved. He's not doesn't.
I think he's a sexy name, but I don't think he had anything.
It wasn't
to do
him,
with
and he said, "I want to fucking know because that's my territory. No one fucks with my territory."
Right, I can see that.
So
yeah, and on St. Patrick's Day, on the most important of all days to an Irish gang in Boston, they don't want it fucking up.
Yeah, so that's why it's probably not him. Is that he's like, I'm gonna find them and kill them because you don't you don't sell weed on my corner. You know?
So, that's why I don't think it's him either. But
that's my fucking territory.
He did plenty of other crimes that he'll go down for. He doesn't need to add to his repertoire.
Exactly. So, and that's my hood. I don't want to fucking. He didn't want. I get it. So, I mean, I have some personal stories from people who lived under Whitey Bulger, and it wasn't good.
Maybe we'll do an episode on him someday.
Yeah, there's one guy who got burned out of his apartment multiple times by him, by his gang. But when I was in Boston, I met all sorts of cool people who were renting. But it's probably a mixture. I mean, we know. Here's the thing: is that I don't know if they did it, but we know Donati and Garenti. No,
they know something about it. Whether or not they were directly involved, they know more than they ever said before they died.
Yep, exactly. So Gentili, Garenti, and Donati know some shit, and that's all I know. That's all I gotta say. Besides my other, obviously, great conclusions.
Yeah, all great conclusions. That's a great final thoughts, dude. Fucking 5 stars on that one. Tell you right now.
Thank you very much.
My final thoughts pretty similar in that case. I don't have as many points as you do, but I think that my instincts lead me to believe that this is directly involved with Garenti and Donati. It is the Italian mob. I do think that they thought that you could parlay priceless works of art into FBI cutting sentences down because there was a history of it. And although it's never been confirmed publicly, it seems like they tried to do that on multiple occasions with multiple different people. So it's not just the one time they tried it didn't work. There's multiple occasions they kept trying to do this shit. And finding the list of the prices and all that shit and this old Haggard guy's thing, I think that he was involved in it. I don't think that he was involved with the Heist. I think he probably moved it for Garenti, and then he had the prices in order to move it around. I mean, who knows where the paintings are now? They could be buried. They could be destroyed. They could be, there's, legends of it being in Medellin, Colombia, and Tokyo, and Saudi Arabia. It seems like all a bunch of fucking hogwash, extra bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one key that makes me believe it's more part of this game is the fact that David Turner's sentence was dropped 7 years initially without any public information. He was directly involved with all the members in the heist that were all dead. He's the only one who's still alive. And not only that, I say this for final thoughts, he was released from prison in 2019, which is even earlier than the 7-year sentence dropped. He was dropped from 2032 to 2025 to now he is a free man as of 2019. And he knows more than that. So people were interviewing him like, why did they let you out? What's going on here? Do you know about the heist? Are you trying to cash in the $10 million? And he had nothing to do with it, he says. But he was also indirectly, or maybe was a direct part of the murder of multiple members of his gang. I mean, one of them was ready to testify against him for crimes, and he was one of the guys who was killed. He wasn't even going to testify about the art heist. He didn't testify about all of the murders this guy pulls off. And now he's walking free and clear, probably living outside of Boston somewhere now with full knowledge of this entire heist. And I think that he knows a whole shit ton. And I think that he told the FBI exactly what they wanted to hear from him in order to let him out, but not enough to find the paintings. And maybe he told them, I'll tell you where the paintings went. I tell you why you can't get to them. Maybe he gave them all the information they needed for that, and that was part of the deal or whatever. But the main thing is the guy's supposed to do 40 years for conspiracy to rob a security truck company. He cuts it down. They ask him about the paintings. Now he's free. You got no paintings. I don't know what to fucking tell you. I mean, maybe there's a case that the FBI knows that the paintings are intangible. Maybe they're destroyed. Maybe they are somewhere else and he can prove it. Or maybe there's another reason why he's out there. But it seems to me that gang of guys had too much information. And it seems to me that they also probably strong-armed the security guards who were a couple of kids
trying to make a living fucking around the museum, and they said, listen to us. You know about us is that we're going to come by this day, and if you know what's good for you and you love your friends and family, then all you have to do is buzz us in. We'll tie you up.
Fucking work and buzz us in and shut the fuck up.
Yeah, we'll tie you up. We'll make sure you have enough water. We're not going to kill you as long as you play ball. And then when the police ask you questions, you can't answer them because we're not going to tell you any more than that. That way, you're saved. We're going to save your life, and we're saved. The other version is we just fucking kill you and your whole family. So buzz us in and tell us about the secret door. Tell us about the motion sensors. Tell us about everything we need to fucking know. We already talked to Miles Connor about how to steal art. We know how to work with this shit before. We want to get on the inside. And even though they can't implicate the security guards as accomplices, I think that was by design. Because if they knew enough, they could tell the cops and probably get saved from it. But if they didn't know enough, but they knew enough not to talk, then the only thing they had for motivation is, I don't want to get killed. I don't know anything. Keep your mouth shut to the grave. I think they stole the art, and I have no fucking idea where it is, but I think it was trafficked through Maine and probably to New York, and who else knows where it went from there on out. But it's just a fascinating story altogether.
But the other thing is just as a young kid, you just go, they're like, all right, cool. So you can not do this, and we know who you are and where you live and what we're going to do, or you're going to show up that day and you're going to do this, or else we're going to kill you. But we're going to show up and not kill you.
Exactly.
You know that if you bail on this or don't show up to work that day, we're going to kill you. So you have
and you're like, I love art, but I don't love it enough to get killed over. Plus, I got to go to a Grateful Dead concert tomorrow night, and I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, show them. And then if you tell the police, we're going to kill you. And the thing is, if you tell the police, it means you basically tell us because we are connected to the police. So
exactly.
You know
so that's I think that's the most likely scenario. Even though a lot of other people we mentioned or groups we mentioned, just as likely, but I think this is the most likely just because of the number of connections, the number of people who are silenced, and the fact that David Turner is a free man now from we are not sure why, and he seems to be directly implicated in the crime. Yet no paintings.
Yep, these guys were here, and this was a different time for New England. It really was. Providence.
Yeah, I mean, it might be the best art heist ever to be pulled off in the history because it'll be so hard to get away with now. Not even just that museum, just from all the new. There's cameras everywhere. Everyone's got a cell phone. Forensics is out of control. I mean, it would be hard pressed for anyone to pull off anything even close to this tomorrow. So I think that might go down in history as the greatest art heist of all time. We shall see. But I hope we can get those paintings back and at least.
I do want to see the paintings back. I mean, as cool as this is, I think that'd be great. It'd be really cool. Very, very cool. So yeah.
Let's wrap her up.
Wrap it up. Two other things, interesting facts about paintings is this was a rumor because I know some, in the North Shore, I know some people, and apparently, the owner of one of the pizza places that I might have taken you to in the North Shore. I'm not going to go into any details. Was one of.
Please, I don't want to get in danger from this.
I'm scared. I don't want to get in danger from this. Was oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Campbell Soup. Campbell Soup guy.
Oh, I mentioned him earlier. Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol, yeah, was one of Andy Warhol's lovers. So back in the 80s, and before, it was hard to come out as gay, and Andy Warhol seemed to hide it sort of, or not. He was obsessed with his girl, but he was definitely gay. One of his lovers lived in the North Shore, and this person apparently has a ton of his paintings, who owns a pizza place.
It's got to be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, and he just has like a stack of Andy Warhol paintings, like genuinely a ton of them because he was one of his lovers. Very interesting. Oh. And then second thing, I mean, the mob is very real. That story is crazy. I'll tell you about it later. But they just removed a MiG-15 STU or STI, something weird like that.
SVU.
NSF ST. What's that show? NSFW SUV like that show on Cartoon Network. It's so funny. Anyway, so but yeah, the writing on the bottom is an Italian mobster's name because some Italian mobster bought a fighter jet and stored it at Beverly Airport.
Wow.
In like the 90s. And
That's
it just got
crazy.
removed because he's in jail.
It's been there the whole time.
He's been in jail for a while, so that's where he had his MiG-15 out of. And then he went to
How
jail.
How did they get it there? The mob is insane.
He probably flew it there, and then they decided that like it has Russian stars on it and stuff.
Hell, you don't see the fucking fighter jet landing in the North Shore. Someone knew about it showing up, and someone said, "I'm not going to say anything."
Oh, then they put it on display, but it had his name all over it. It's
Right.
like pilot Donald something, and it's just so fun. Like how much power and money these guys had. Like in the '90s, he bought a MiG-15 and then flew it to Beverly Airport, and then went to jail for weapons charges. And he was like, they found like I looked him up and they found like 300 guns in his house, and they're like, all right, you're going to jail, Donald. And then the Beverly Airport was like, all right, well, we're going to put your MiG-15 on display because it's ours now. So
we're not going to trash it.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
That's what I hope happens to these paintings. I hope they find it later on. They say, we're glad we still have it. Put it back on display. The public needs to see it. It's all been a fun game to tag. But Here we go. And that's what I should show up. So
yeah, stolen artifacts. I mean, the ultimate is the Ark of the Covenant. That's still out there. The journey that thing took compared to any of these things, if it's real, it's gone to everybody, possibly even the Nazis, and around and back. From
much like the paintings that they stole from Europe, of course.
Yeah, all this crazy shit. So stolen art is definitely interesting. It's very, very real and interesting. And you don't have to use a whole lot of philosophy to understand why it happens. You go, stolen art makes sense. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So that's it, Joe. I think that's the Dylan Joe Basin podcast, episode 28 on the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum and specifically the heist associated with it.
The biggest art heist ever.
I don't know if they'll let me back into the Gardner Museum. My entire family was kicked out in 1995, and they might remember that. So
you think you're on the list?
I might be on the list.
The blacklist?
I asked my mother. I gave her a quick call, and
because of the potted plant incident, they threw everybody.
No, she said it wasn't just that. That's what I remember. She said that.
Oh, that was just one of the long litany of things you were accused of.
I was. I went to everywhere I wasn't supposed to go in the museum. If they said not to go there, that's where I went.
Actually, I wouldn't. I know it's kind of shitty to stifle the artistic inspiration for children, but I'd say if you're under 5 years old, you can't go there because all it is shit you can't touch, and all kids want to do is touch shit. They don't appreciate anything. So there should be an age limit. Be like, if you're below 5 years old, you can't go in there. Nothing for you there but to ruin this art. So fuck
There's
off.
Absolutely nothing for
Chuck E. Cheese down the road, or go to your house and put a swimming pool in your backyard, like my neighbors have right now. There's 3 fucking naked kids in the driveway in a pool right now. That's nice. To do that if you can't handle your kids. Bring them to a classic art museum to go fuck around in the plants. Not that it's your fault. You're a kid. What do you know?
World-renowned classic art museum to go bring a 5-year-old to.
Fun.
If a kid says they appreciate this place, it's bullshit. They don't.